OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Doherty makes the underlapping run now, but Smallbone continues, gives it out to Doherty, puts the cross in towards the back post, over the goalkeeper, played in by Michael McGee, and Evan Ferguson has scored his first goal for the Republic of Ireland senior team from close range. It was an easy tap in, but a brilliantly worked goal again by Ireland.
Oh yeah, and just like that, Evan Ferguson was up and running in his Ireland career. A goal last night in a 3-2 win for the Republic of Ireland against Latvia. Give us your thoughts. 087 9180 180 is the WhatsApp number. We'll have Vinny Perth in the studio a little bit later on. In the meantime, we're going to have to make do with Shane and Colm. Good morning to you, lads.
Yeah, second choice. Good morning.
There you go.
First choice always. Welcome back, Shane. Great to have you back for this momentous day. Say what you want about the game. Right, started off very well. First 20 minutes looks like this is fantastic, ideal preparation for France. And in the rest of the game, okay, we'll talk about that. But I think what was absolute success, the new Irish look, the crest, looked unbelievably nice. Mm-hmm. Unbelievably nice in action, especially afterwards. Evan Ferguson was getting interviewed. He had the jacket on, Castori to one side, and the crest on the other side. I couldn't keep my eyes off it.
Oh, wow.
I was like, fair play to the design department.
That's just Evan Ferguson's pecs. Generally, I think pronounced the jersey a little bit more.
We had enough of this pervy behaviour last night or yesterday, Shane. So we're nipping that in the bud.
It needs to be said.
I noticed that when James McLean put his post up, that there was a lot of love from international people they're like, wow, the jersey looks great. So maybe there's going to be a backlash against the backlash in traditional Irish fashion. Other people think it's okay. Oh yeah, I was always in favour of that jersey in the first place.
I'm not a fan of the jersey. I'm a fan of the crest.
You're not a fan of the jersey at all?
Yes. Okay. That's what I want
Retro
to say.
is good though.
Let's talk about the football.
Yes.
Let's
happily
stick to football. For once I'm on the stick to football. We have a lot of evidence. Dunphy thinks it was sloppy, lazy. Don't know what he was trying to do with the team selection. No one has supported him more than me, says Dunphy. But that should have played the full team. Now, we had Keith Tracy in studio last Friday for the football kickoff, and he was like, you can't pick the same team that you're going to pick for the France game as you pick for the Latvia game. You've got to go and try and win the game. And I have a foot in both camps. I understand what he's trying to do last night, and I understand as well that some players are having their load managed. We don't need to see John Egan play the full game. Like Egan involved in a big game last weekend. He is going to captain, or certainly it's a good chance that he's... I don't know who's going to captain now. Is Seamus Coleman going to play? There's some doubts about Coleman. All of a sudden there's like a niggle that he'll be fine, but what's the... does he not play? And so therefore, do we actually end up just seeing largely that defence with Egan in instead of Omabamidele and Bazunu in goals? And then you're like, okay, well, it's not that big a deal that these players played last night. So I don't know. Ultimately, it doesn't really matter. If we get a performance against France, you'll be like, everybody in the squad feels alive. They feel like they've been given an opportunity. And for the Greece game, which is when I think, and we can talk about this, is when I think Smallbone might get an opportunity to start. Then all of a sudden you have real competition and strength and depth. I think for this one though, for the France game, he's going to go back to players that he knows really well and who he can trust.
Yeah, Smallbone probably deserves a start after the performance last night. He was quite comfortably the standout player, but maybe it comes too soon for him to start against France. I think even his own vibe in the interviews afterwards, he was like, well, whether I come off the bench or start on Monday, happy to do a job. But I think it won't be a start at this stage, you'd imagine. Tried and trusted is probably the method to beat France, and it's going to be a completely different setup against France, let's be honest. I think that Kenny just wanted to go out there and get the win last night. There are as many negatives out of last night as positives, but I mean, which do you want to focus on here?
Well, we are where we are is the first thing, right? Like, we have a really young team. There's not like 6 players who could come in and immediately make the team better, who you're going, there's loads of lads with 50 caps who could definitely improve the ebb and flow of that side. I think he's managing his resources over the course of these 2 fixtures, and I don't need to see Josh Cullen play. I don't need to see Josh Cullen get kicked around in midfield. I didn't need to see Evan Ferguson play on after he got the follow through with the shot. I'm like, okay, off you go. That's enough.
Everybody stop.
National crisis. Get him off. No, they played him on. I was like, I'm not sure about that.
But he's 18. You can't wrap him in cotton wool either. You know, like,
Well, you can. You literally can take him off after that point to say, no more minutes for you, buddy. No more. No, they gave him 10 more minutes. And so
No, I think that was fine to give him. If he wasn't injured, it was fine to keep him on because we're going to need him for as long as possible
we
against
didn't
France.
send anybody out to see if he was injured or not. We didn't like have a, you got a lot of adrenaline coursing through your system here. You've scored a goal in your full debut for the Republic of Ireland at home. Everybody thinks you're. Anyway.
Shane, you were there. Did anybody evidently go over to him?
No, I didn't see it. The two biggest cheers I would say of the night that I could sense were the announcer calling the teams out beforehand. The cheer for Evan Ferguson's name was massive, clearly bigger than any other player's cheer. And then Mikey Johnston going over to take a corner. I think after his two little mazy runs, and everyone's like, "This guy's a player," and he went over to literally take a corner. He didn't even end up taking the corner, I don't think. But that entire corner just gave him an ovation. That I was like, "Yeah, this guy."
Sorry,
that was.
Can we just stop with Johnston for a second, right? Whatever about the mazy dribble, the first thing he did after he came on the pitch and hits the post, and that's where the winner is scored from. The second dribble on the left-hand side.
Yeah.
So he drops his shoulder, goes past one Latvia player, and I was like, that's nice. We don't see enough Irish players do that. In fact, when's the last time you've seen a Republic of Ireland international do something like that? It's the next part.
It is McGee.
It's the next, Eamon McGee.
Like
it's the next part. The next part when he has two Latvia players around him, and he does this little neat bit of footwork, right foot to left foot shift with the ball. Now that type of skill, you do not associate with Irish players, and it's unbelievable to see. I love that. And it's unfortunate the shot was blocked afterwards. I actually thought he was going to dummy it one more time and commit that defender and then have an easier angle to pass through the goalkeeper. But he was delighted with himself afterwards, a big smile, and he plays with a smile. And he was playing so well. At one point I was like, geez, you could start this guy against France.
Tell you what, I'm not one for hyperbole, but the ball was glued to his feet like Lionel Messi. There was something about his dribbling. I'm not.
That's totally fair. Clip that.
Yeah, don't
totally
get ahead of myself. He was brilliant, and it was
Messi and Haaland.
It was very McGee-esque, wasn't it?
Yeah. I didn't know the things he did afterwards. He gave the ball away a couple of times after that dribble, and he probably got a bit excited with it. But we just don't have anyone like that, and actually very few teams do. And Stuey Byrne was saying it afterwards. We played the video out at the end of the show with Stephen Doyle. Was that you just don't see many players in football in general do that anymore because football is generally very structured.
Yeah.
And taking on players is a high risk strategy, which often doesn't pay off.
Yeah. It was very exciting. It was like
I don't think we should be glib over it. I think it was really exciting. I don't think we have seen enough of that at all. And when it's happened, I was like, that's the reason you watch football. Moments like that. You know?
Yeah, very exciting.
You seem it. By the way, I'm all for Munster representation, of course, in general this week. But I found it odd that Caoimhín Kelleher started ahead of Gavin Bazunu. Because Bazunu is going to play on Monday.
Hang on a second. You've just dropped that in there without actually having any context to it. What are you talking about?
There was a Cork man in goal.
No.
And I thought they should have played
You're all about Munster representation this week. What are you talking about?
Well, it's funny, Jar, you bring that up. I was thinking,
you brought
up again, as in you kept it going, that Ireland won the Grand Slam there last Saturday at the Aviva. Yeah. And there was a lot of Leinster players on the pitch. And it did occur to me, I was watching the match in Cork, and after 58 minutes, someone said to me in my near vicinity, he was like, there's only one Cork fella on the pitch at that point.
Boo-hoo.
And last night, then this video emerges online. Guy Ringrose, all the lads calling over to the house, and one after another they pile in. And what you're mostly hearing are Leinster, Southern Dublin accents, and then you hear at the back of the queue this Munster voice. And I was like, wouldn't it be nice to have greater representation on the Irish rugby team? Which wouldn't it be nice if it's the Irish rugby team?
They're all Irish.
It's not Leinster.
Jesus.
So then it happened last night.
Let's just throw that out there to 087 9180 180, or you can leave a comment in the YouTube stream and we'll put a little poll up maybe to see our
Yeah, that's fine.
You brought it up now, Colin. You brought it up, not us, right? You brought it up. That's it. Go on, Caoimhín Kelleher, you didn't want to play. What?
Well, yeah, again, I'm all about Cork people playing. Fantastic. But Kelleher has not played for Liverpool at all recently, and he isn't going to play on Monday night. And I thought that was the only position where I would play the player that I intend to start with on Monday, and that's Bazunu, because he's going to play on Monday. And I found that a strange decision because Kelleher wasn't great for both goals. He, strangely, for the first one, it's a screamer. It's one of the greatest goals scored by an opposition team at the Aviva
since the last time.
But there's been two other long distance screamers, Azerbaijan and Luxembourg, but I think this is the best. Kelleher seemed to run past the ball, strangely, for the first goal. And the second goal, look at big deflection on a wet night, but his reactions were slow because he doesn't play much football. He's not used to this.
I think that I actually don't agree with you that they need to play Bazunu. Like, Bazunu's played every minute of all the Premier League games. I think he hasn't been dropped for any of the Premier League games. He hasn't played.
No, he hasn't. He's played everything, yeah. But he is not used to this team.
He doesn't need. Well, he's very used to it because he's got like 15, 20 caps at this stage. With how many caps does Bazunu have? I need to just actually check.
Checked away, but at the moment, but he hasn't played with this Irish team for a few months now, and it would be nice to kind of get back into the rhythm of it and play with what's going to be a very similar defence. And I think that Bazunu should have started.
It's a perfect opportunity to give Kelleher a cap because he's not going to get that many caps.
Well, I think he.
But why would you do it?
I think there's a chance he might get loads of caps if he gets a move to another Premier League.
Of course.
Team.
The future is very bright for Kelleher. But right now,
13 caps.
Okay.
So 15, 20,
but right now, heading into this France game,
14.
I would get Bazunu as much practice at that stadium with this team again to get him back into the rhythm of playing with that side, because it's a goalkeeper. It's crucial. As we saw last night, if you make a subtle error as a goalkeeper, you cost goals.
So the other side of that is that if Bazunu gets injured before the Greece game, for example, the games against France, if we get a point from the 2 games against France and a point from the 2 games against the Netherlands, that won't be a bad outcome. So the main games are the games ultimately against Greece and Gibraltar are going to decide how this whole thing pans out and where we end up realistically in terms of qualification. If you have no goalkeeper who has played no games, if it's Kelleher in Greece because Bazunu gets injured, then he's got nothing. And also, I think playing last night is going to give him a taste for playing, and he's going to go back and insist that this is the end of his Liverpool career, as opposed to there's a few requests in, might be nice for me to be able to move on. What do you think? It's like, no, I got to go because I'm not even playing that well at the moment, and I've got to get out of this. And the only way to do that is you might be right. Bazunu drops one in the first 5 minutes on the ground and someone scuffs it in. You're like, oh, if he played the other night, I'm going to be I don't know. I think that you've got to try and keep everybody as engaged and as involved as possible. And ultimately, he's played loads of football. Like, that's his gig. Week in, week out, he's playing football and he knows what the job is, and he's played in this team as first choice, and he's secure, I think, in that position for now. So
all of those things are true. I just think it would have been better preparation for him to play this game, but then, get ready for Monday. Then you just play the whole team. Then you have to play Cullen, and then you have to play, it's the same argument. And so either you're consistent with the argument or you're not, I think. And what he chose to do was, let's see some players, let's increase the strength and depth, and let's risk some stuff. You don't have to play your strongest team. Goalkeepers are different. That's my point.
Why?
Because if you make a tiny error as a goalkeeper, it's a goal. So I think it would be a great.
But how are you less likely to make an error?
Your first choice goalkeeper ahead of a game of this magnitude.
He played last weekend though. It's not like he's going to be out of practice or rusty.
Yeah, but it would be good to play with these set of players at the stadium in this environment to get back into the swing of things. I just thought it would have been better preparation for it. I didn't see the point of playing Kelleher last night.
Okay, I do. I think that it's a significant moment in Kelleher's career where it's like, okay, we still want you to be able to play in big games for us, and you're going to have to be ready, but you're not ready at the moment because you're not getting football.
One man I thought wasn't setting the world alight last night was Michael Obafemi. And I was expecting and hoping for big things from him last night, and look, he set up the Ferguson goal by keeping the ball in play, but apart from that, the touches he had were kind of sporadic and also a little bit just not that exciting. He didn't really do much to stick his hand up, but we know what Michael Obafemi can do, and maybe that's why you probably do play him on Monday night off Evan Ferguson again. I don't know what thinking. Stephen Kelly did mention Adamida by name and says hopefully he'll be back in selection for Monday as well, so there's a few options there. O'Dowda was brilliant, the left back as well, put his hand up. So the positives outweigh the negatives, I think, albeit giving up a 2-0 lead at home against Latvia, a team 133rd in the world or something. It's not great, but it was similar. I was at that Armenia game where we did the exact same, but the atmosphere was probably more exciting leaving that one because it was a last minute winner and everyone was like, we got the win. It was Nations League, we needed to get the 3 points.
Happy Brady,
so it was a bit more exciting. Last night was like, Evan Ferguson. The reason I went last night was I don't want to look back in 10, 15, 20 years and be like, I wasn't at Evan Ferguson's first game. Bought the programme, kept it dry until one guy spilled beer all over it. So now I have a story to go with the programme. But that pissed me off a little bit last night.
I'm sure somebody would give you their programme from last night that's clean and not all sticky.
If anyone's watching and has a dry programme, Shane Hannon, Off the Ball, Marconi House.
Slowly fermenting the extra sugary beer, ruining and taking away, and then you'll be like, who's? And the pages stuck together, and Evan Ferguson's face kind of mashed onto Kevin Kelleher's face.
Second. So if anyone has a programme, yeah.
I thought Callum O'Donoghue kind of reflected the team's performance. Probably started brilliantly and sort of faded after that, but his impact was such that I think overall he played very well. I would disagree with Obafemi, but it's interesting your perspective being there at the stadium. You probably saw more of him off the ball and off the camera, but from what I saw of him on TV, I was impressed. Like, I thought he played a crucial part in both goals. The obvious one for Ferguson set up, keeping the ball in just. I don't know if that was in play. It seed to be just about in play.
It'd be good to have the old VAR, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
For the penalty that we didn't get, that would have made the game 3-0. And I think, I know it's a friendly, and here's the thing: maybe that was a make-up decision, like the penalty, because they thought the ball was out of play.
I don't know. The one angle that they zoomed in on seemed it was just about in play, but it didn't seem to finish.
Will we have VAR for the France game? Will we have?
There should be VAR for the France game.
And will there be like a camera that would be able to tell us if
it's a competitive match, you'd imagine it would be.
And will that technology apply to whether or not the ball was out of play there?
But usually, if it leads to a goal, maybe is the only time that would intervene.
Well, yeah.
So which it did in this instance. So yeah, I would imagine it would.
But even his movement for the first goal to create space for O'Dowd to come in, and then one thing is he had a lovely flick through pass to, I think it was Jason Lumby or Alan Brown just after 2-0. Beautiful through ball. It just flicked, no look pass, something that Matt Doherty was doing repeatedly and giving the ball away a lot, doing the same thing, but this actually worked for Obafemi, and he created loads of space. So I hear you, Shane, he gave the ball away a few times, but I thought overall he was very good, Obafemi, from my perspective.
I thought he was pretty good too. I think that with a player like that, right, you need them to have goal involvements, and you need them to be energetic in their press, because he's not going to be dropping back into midfield and looking up and switching the play. Like, that's not his game. There's the beginning of a partnership there. We should talk about Smallbone. A lot of love for him. He was player of the match, and I don't think he's going to start. I don't think he's in contention to start, really. But that's not a reflection on where he is or anything like that. It's just that for this game against France, I'm not sure, unless he just plays with Ferguson up front and adds an extra body in midfield, and he's the body in midfield. But I think Knight's coming in because of the high octane, high energy, fast running that you get from him, and I think obviously Cullen's coming in, and so where do you fit him in the team?
Yeah, you have to drop one of those two names you've mentioned, don't you? But that's the thing. Will Smallbone is playing unbelievably well for Stoke City. He's like turned into an assist king. Plays really well last night. O'Dowd is playing brilliantly for Cardiff City. Plays really well last night. Doherty's not getting game time at Atletico and plays relatively poorly last night. So turns out game time and form this season really has an impact at international level. So that's an argument for Will Smallbone to start against France, I would say. Head and shoulders above anyone in a green jersey last night. So like I wouldn't be against Will Smallbone starting, but as you say, the question is, who do you take out?
Well, yeah, the only problem is I think he stood out significantly, I think, as the most technically gifted midfielder on show last night between both teams, and that just won't be the case against France. No, so then you're thinking, well, what kind of Smallbone are you going to get? Because he's going to have to be just part of the game. He's not going to stand out above France's midfield. So therefore, it might be just about the right call to keep him on the bench and bring him on. But you'd be very tempted to play him. Like, he was excellent. His link up with Doherty was exceptional. And going back to Doherty there, Shane, you said he was poor enough, he's not playing for Atletico. I think he actually started the game quite well, and it goes to show he's obviously training with a lot of talent around him every day. He's only played 16 minutes for Atletico since moving in January, but you could tell the quality around him because he was confident at the start. He got loads of the ball, and it seemed to be himself and Will Smallbone were having their own personal game, like where they were just passing to each other exclusively at one point. But Doherty, was very poor for the goal, the flicker in the corner, and he actually did the exact same thing at the start of the second half, which again led to a Latvia shot from about 25 yards out. This time went straight at Kelleher. So it's a facet of Doherty's game that, for me, has always been there. He does this kind of careless passing forward where he doesn't look and he just puts it into space. And with Doherty, he kind of frustrates me a bit. He's played the most under any player under the Stephen Kenny regime. Played the most amount of games. He can be so much more Doherty than he is. And I think the thing with Doherty is he's always struggled with confidence. I don't think he believes in himself as much as he should. Like, he has everything there to be an exceptional player, technically. But I often find with Doherty, he gets the ball, he stands still, passes it backwards, passes it sideways, and you could be getting way more out of him, because the odd time when he does go forward and he gets a bit of momentum, he stands out as a really good player. It's
a real pity that Wolves didn't give him the contract that he got at Spurs, and he was still rampaging down the wing for Wolves. We tweeted out last night before kickoff the average age of the team. Kelleher 24, Omabama 20, O'Shea 24, Collins 21, O'Dowda 27, Doherty, the old man of the team, at 31, Malumbi 23, Brown 27, Smallbone 23, Obafemi 22, and Ferguson 18. The average age is 23.6. It's a really young team, and I think that's the bit where you see that there's room for growth. Like, the defensive errors are worrying. Like, it is worrying that teams have identified take pot shots, and if you hit the target, there's a good chance you're going to score from distance. That's something that, like, is that pressure on the ball in midfield? Is that the defence are like 2 yards back from where they need to be? And is that fixed automatically by John Egan coming in and just bossing everybody forward?
Well, the second goal was shambolic.
Oh, really bad. Like, Callum O'Dowda and Darragh O'Shea, there was no communication. They went for the same ball. And even before that, Nathan Collins had a chance to clear
Per header.
Yeah.
and he's too deep then when he deflects it, so he's not
And
pushed out.
there wasn't actually enough pressure on the header. So Collins is the second ball.
Second, yeah.
Yeah, on the first one, Mohamed isn't strong enough to, like, hang on a second, I'm in charge here. So, look, you forget that he's 20 and that he hasn't played enough football over the last 18 months. So,
But there's not even a chance for Latvia there if there's communication between O'Dowda and O'Shea, and that does go to show the inexperience and probably lack of leadership on the pitch last night. There was no one that vocal. Like, the most senior defender was O'Shea at 24.
yeah, but
He is taking the chance here.
and he's captained West Brom at times. So, like, I and also at 27, Callum O'Dowda doesn't need much more experience. Like, he's played a lot of football. So, but that's fixable. I guess is the point that I'm getting to there. That the defensive errors are fixable, and you hope that the benefit of them playing is together is that they stick in the team. But if you two are both so out on Doherty's performance last night, does he not start?
Depends on Coleman's fitness.
Or does it only depend on Coleman? You can't see him playing left back. Is O'Dowda now your first choice left back?
I think O'Dowda. Will he start O'Dowda?
He does start O'Dowda now, I think.
We'll get Vinny Perth taking this. He's going to come in, tell us his preferred 11 if everyone's fit against France. But I'd probably just about maybe go for Doherty, left wing back, with Coleman on the other side if Coleman's fit.
You need to pick players that are playing well, Colm. Like, O'Dowda played well, you can't drop him. I think, anyway. Like, he's playing well all season, by the way, at club level, not just last night.
Just Doherty is more experienced against really brilliant opposition than O'Dowda, but that's a tight call. I wasn't like, Doherty did a lot of things well last night. Again, his link-up play with Smallbone was brilliant, and it caused Latvia all manner of problems.
It's funny.
And he was central to the first 2 goals, Doherty, but like, he leaves a lot out there. But in fairness, he's played barely any football in 2023.
It's funny, like, I know leaving the Aviva Stadium last night, there's probably some elements of the Kenny out brigade that would be like feeling quite negative ahead of the France game, and how far off it we probably are, given, as Stephen Kenny mentioned, this is a France team that's been in the last 2 World Cup finals. But there is something about the Ireland team when it comes to a big game at home against top opposition, where they just completely up the ante and up the performance. So, like, I'm not even concerned that we conceded 2 against Latvia at home last night, and I should be. But it's just the fact that, like the Portugal game, they're going to possibly up it a little bit. It's not the starting team that'll play on Monday as played last night, but I just think there's something in this Irish team when it comes to a big game. France, the atmosphere, a full Aviva Stadium. There was 10,000 empty seats last night in the Aviva. So I think all of those elements would lead to me being a bit more optimistic, possibly, for Monday.
I think last night was largely really positive. Like, you look at the 2 Latvia goals, one of them was a screamer, and the second one was a defensive error, as Gerald already said, can be fixed, like, with just better communication and more awareness around you. The concerning issue is this trend of conceding goals from outside the box against lower ranked opposition, which is a very specific problem for this Ireland side.
Yeah, and you do wonder if that's not actually quite fixable, that, like, Keith Andrews and John O'Shea are looking at that going, here's how we're going to fix that, lads. Does everybody understand exactly what your role is when this happens? Let's be more switched on, and let's have more confidence in ourselves. I think it is potentially about the time spent on the training pitch, and you hope that the extra 5 or 6 hours that they get between now and the arrival of this absolutely star-studded French team.
Yeah, and they're still winning games. Like, there was a time there where that Latvia game last night and the Armenia game at home, they would have ended up drawing or losing those games. So at least they're getting, I know it's only a friendly, but they're getting the results, which is confidence as well. You know, Stephen Kenny wants his win ratio as Ireland manager to be high. So,
well, run you through the back page headlines on this. Fergie Time says the back page of the Daily Star, Ireland 3, Latvia 2. Kenny pleased as Evan shines ahead of huge France task. Eamon Dunphy, Kenny got it badly wrong with his team selection last night. If you're just tuning in, Dunphy's basic point was that he should have picked, I think he's largely agreeing with you, Colm, that except he would have gone further and picked Egan and picked Cullen and picked Bazunu. Pick the team we're going to play against France and give them game time together. Ferguson leaps into Kenny plans for French showdown. All around him last night, Lansdowne Road resonated with a deep, deep sound of hope. That's Vincent Hogan's piece on Evan Ferguson's full debut and a goal. Ogbenny and the sweats. Sub Chio saves, Kenny blushes.
what's the reference now? What's the reference there? Am I stupid? Benny and the Sweats. Is this a band from the 70s or 80s?
I guess so. I'm also at a bit of a...
Help us out in the comments, please.
Anyone? Bueller? Bueller? Anyone? Bueller?
Did you get that reference?
Sorry, Benny as well. We haven't even... Ferris Bueller. We haven't even referenced Chidozie Ogbenny. I think he was brilliant when he came off the bench as well.
Well,
bit of an impact.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I think for me the most concerning part of the match was the first half of the second half, not the 2 goals period for Latvia. But if you look at it, like, Latvia they had 2 shots to Ireland's 1 in that period of time between the 45th to 68th minute. So 2 minutes into the second half, I don't know if you were back in your seat at that point.
Oh, I was, of course. I'm not one of those fans. Jesus Christ.
Gudkovitz snaps a volley, half volley over the bar. And there's another shot from range, which we already talked about.
He's still talking.
Benny and the Jets, by the way.
Do you want to continue?
Benny and the Jets.
Apparently,
yeah, I'm in the middle of it.
So I thought you took a break and allowed other people to speak.
What if I'm just going to go home again? Jesus. Sitting between you two lads.
Bone in contention. Man of the match, Will, states his case for France as Evan opens Irish goal account. Evan targets... Bone of contention.
Yeah, it's very good. That's not bad.
Okay. Evan targets France after dream debut. He was like, yeah, hopefully I get picked. I mean, you know, the manager would be mad not to, was the subtext, right?
Yeah.
Fresh hope. This is a Return of the Jedi. Was that Fresh Hope, or was that after that? New boys shine as Ireland overcome defiant Latvia. That's the Examiner. And there you go, Colm, you're free again. Off you go.
No, I was done.
Oh, yeah.
Ruined my momentum now.
You're going through the minute by minute of the match that everybody saw.
I was just saying that Kenny's triple substitution on the hour mark changed the game for the better, because within 100 seconds Ireland had retaken the lead. And that was good management, because, you know, oftentimes people have a go at him, and I thought that was quite good. The 3 subs were good.
I think,
and Ireland were struggling at the time.
I think Comiskey points that out in his match report as well, that there has been criticism of not making changes, makes changes, and it turns out if you make those changes and you bring on those players
early enough as well.
Well, whenever you need them, you know, like, so when it's do you wait to make those changes until you're 3-0 down or 2-0 down against France? When do you smash the glass and go, this is an emergency?
Yeah. I feel like we could be level after an hour against France. I've called it.
I would take level after an hour against France.
Really? Do you think so?
I think they'll keep it tight and stay within the game. Stephen Kenny knows how to play against these big teams. I could have pie in my face and we'll be 3-0 down by an hour on Monday, but I'm willing to put myself out there. I also think Chidozie Ogbenny is going to score against France. I've seen it in my dreams. So call it here first, folks. If it happens, you know where you heard it. But no, I'm as someone says in the comments, Dan says, just a silly feeling I have. I'm going to the game with a pep in my step on Monday. And I think there's a lot of Irish fans with that unwarranted, perhaps, positivity going into Monday. But let us dream. That's what sport's all about.
Elton John, any of the Jets. What's wrong with you, Colm?
I just realised there's a poll.
Did he just swear?
There's a
Pretty
poll.
sure.
Did he just swear?
You're mad. You're mad on to me about swearing.
Can I just? I'm
He's the producer,
I'm
so.
opening the kimono a little bit here. Like, normally Colin sits there off screen, you can't see it, behind some glass.
Giving out to us.
With the death stare, anytime anybody or there's anything that is like vaguely, you know, Mary Whitehouse, there's a reference you ask your dad about, the immoral arbiter of anything, and here he is just dropping F-bombs on the show live. Apologies to all the little ears out there.
No,
I'm sorry for ruining your breakfast, parents.
I just realised that they're actually the digital team, Cameron, Kathleen and Dara, have actually set a poll.
Throwing people under the bus.
They've actually set a poll from Munster and Ireland.
As we asked.
They've actually set a poll.
Yeah, as we asked they should.
Can I just say, I agree with Andy Farrell's decision to play the strongest players.
No,
I just think it would be nice.
That bit's not going to be included in the clip, Colin.
I just think it would be nice to have Munster representation. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying he picked the wrong team.
Yeah.
Obviously. results show.
OTB AM live with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shaver, your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. We picked up the momentum in the last 5 minutes, it feels like, here on the show. You were pointing at me? No, he's waving at me now. He's had enough. He's on strike. Vinny Perth is outside. We're going to get him in just a moment. If you want to get in touch, 087 918 180 is the WhatsApp number. We'll be right back after these.
OTB AM.
The Sports Breakfast Show from Off the Ball.
OTB Rugby.
You still have to get it done at the time that it really counts, which we have not managed to do. It's the first time that you could genuinely say that there's a chance, with lots going right for us, that we could be World Cup champions. But
subscribe to the rugby stream on the OTB Sports app now.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Your dad Barry, obviously an ex-footballer himself, and I know he takes a bit of maybe a backseat in your career. How was he kind of feeling when you told him you were going to make your full debut tonight?
I didn't say anything to him. I think I just left him he just said, listen, look forward to it and all the best, but I'll go see him now and see what he has to say.
So how do you feel you performed generally this evening?
I felt alright. I felt as a team there was gaps for me to get on the ball, and I tried to get on the ball as best I could. And felt like overall it was decent.
Just I know it was before your time as well in this team. You see Ireland conceding those kind of balls around the box. Is it something the team spoke about afterwards? Is it something you're going to have to work on again before you play France on Monday?
Yeah, it's something we spoke about, but I think it's an easy fix. I think we can just make a few adjustments and we won't concede and put the goals in.
Your relationship with Will Smallbone on the right was very productive tonight. Is that something you think that's come from underage level as well?
I think so, yeah, definitely. I'm more of a good mate with Will, so I sort of know how he plays now, because I've played with him through the underage, so I think we've good chemistry.
Has Stephen say anything about the France game on Monday? Is it likely you'll get a start, do you think?
I'm not sure, just recover right and hopefully get the start.
How would you feel about playing? I think there's talk maybe up in Meccano and Canati will be the two players to play centre half for France. Do you think you can or manage playing against them or maybe get a goal or two?
Well, I think it's just the occasion and on the day, and it doesn't really matter. It doesn't fade me who I'm playing against really. It's just a game at the end of the day. Hopefully we can get a few goals in.
Yeah, what a great attitude he has. Vinny Perth, good morning to you.
Morning. Yeah, it's great to have no fears in life, isn't it?
You must be feeling pretty proud.
Yeah, no, it was a great night. His granny came over from the UK to see him make his debut, to score as well, so that was great for him. And obviously there was a huge family from the Ferguson there, so yeah, they did a good night. Yeah,
look, these games are always very difficult when there's a lot of pressure on you, but he was excellent. Yeah,
I think it's funny, I sat in between Sean St. Ledger and Richard Dunn at the game last night. I blanked the Fergusons for the night, and the two of them played at a really high level, and the one thing the two of them remarked on, his movement is sensational, and how difficult it would be to mark him. And I don't think, because even with Brighton, you see him making a lot of these movements, dropping into that sort of 10th position, and don't always get the ball, but it drags people around, and I think you probably need a runner beyond it, and I think the likes of Matoma, Brighton would like that, leave a bit of space, or Solly March. So, but to be fair, I thought he mentioned Smallbone there in his interview. Him and Smallbone linked up really well, with Smallbone making them runs from that sort of 10 position. I thought Smallbone and him were very good combination.
It's funny you mentioned his movement, because at some stage in the second half it was almost like a red button. I was sitting in the south stand, and you can kind of sit and watch Evan Ferguson for time in that second half. And I mean this not disrespectfully to the rest of the Irish team, but a lot of the movement and sometimes the touches are at Championship level or League One level. But with Ferguson, you can tell his touch and his movement is Premier League level. Like he's a notch above a lot of the Irish players. I mean that with respect to the rest of the Irish players as well. We know what level we're at, but Ferguson's movement and his touch is sublime, Vinny, as well.
Yeah, it is. It's something I think he's really worked on over the huge credit has to go to Brighton. They've really developed that part of his game, because he's come in now to suit their style, and he's not an out-and-out striker, so the benefit of that and him, the player, is he could do all the striker stuff. He could, get into the box, he could score headed goals, good finisher, we've seen over the last couple of weeks. But the level of his play since he's gone to Brighton as his link up or taking the ball in under pressure, and also you remember the weight of the pass into strikers when you do go up levels. It's completely different. He gets it a little bit quicker in the Premiership, I would say. So, but yeah, look, I think he's been a real find for us now. Absolutely.
You obviously have to be coachable, right? But just to tease that out, how are Brighton fixing that stuff or making that better? What is it like? I know it's obviously hours on the training, but what else are they doing? Like,
well, look, without knowing the whole ins and outs of it, it's straightforward stuff. As in, it's video analysis. It's watching his game. It's about continuity of the first team playing the same way as the under 23s at the time. So the two teams play the same way. So they're coached the same way. You expect the striker of the first team to play the same way within reason. And so it's all of those little fine details where when you look at the say the Irish rugby team, and particularly now being best in class, when someone comes out, someone else goes in. It's like for like, and that's how or going back to the All Blacks or whatever it was, when things are really clicking for a club, it's seamless that the same way. So it's the same principles in your club all the way through. Within reason, you'll have a big striker playing for your under 13s who's 7'2", but within reason, that's how it's done. And it's training ground. It's about one-on-one meetings. It's about sitting with players. It's about developing them, and that's why a lot of clubs would hire coaches specifically around development of players. So his job will be, that's why they record training, record under 23 matches. He'll link videos together, sit with individual players. So individual player improvement or development is a huge part of clubs at the highest level.
He's obviously benefiting from it massively. Yeah. So what else about the shape of the team last night? So we've got to talk about this because we did talk about it a little bit earlier. Dunphy wanted the full team that was going to play against France. I see some merit in that argument, but at the same time, you've got to manage a squad and you've got to keep everybody interested. And it's a bit early in the campaign to be saying this is my first 11, everybody else you're second.
Yeah, it's one of them where I'm probably walking in a little bit nervous. I didn't hear you this morning. I didn't see much reaction because I was at the game last night, and I don't know, I came away from a little bit glass half full, glass half empty feeling. And you often get that with friendlies, don't get me wrong, but I've probably got more questions now of the team for France than I do going into the game. I think it's very confusing.
That's a good thing though. That means the likes of Smallbone put up a hand.
No, yeah, but the challenge we have is where are we with Matt Doherty? Like, you've got to say, if I'm Stephen Kenny's assistant, I'm sitting with him this morning saying, what's the decision about right wing back? I have to say, Matt Doherty looks like he's not playing football, so that game obviously playing him benefited him, and we've got to see beyond. As an Irish international team, we've got to see beyond players not playing week in, week out because of the size of our nation and different things. But you've got to have concerns about him. And I look at Seamus Coleman playing week in, week out with Everton. I heard Nathan on, I think it was yesterday, talking about it. If you actually watch him closely, he's been excellent in the last couple of months. He's got really, really fit again. That injury knocked him back for a couple of years. And while he is aging, I would be making the argument to Stephen this morning. You know what? We've got to look at Seamus and whether that means, he didn't come on yesterday, so I find it hard to believe that Seamus will come over and not play this week. So that tells me Seamus will probably start on Monday in my head, and does that mean Doherty plays left wing back? So that's where there's a little bit of confusion now. And then to go back to the game last night, and I've said it many times on this show, but we have to learn how to beat these teams. We weren't good enough against a pretty average side last night. We ended up winning 3-2, but I was hugely disappointed by the performance. We didn't create enough chances. We have to have a more adaptability about our shape when we play teams similar rank to us or lower than us, because the first goal was brilliant. It was what you want to see. Striker dropping in, out to the full back, sets a small ball stand up is brilliant, and your left back is getting in the back post scoring. But beyond that, we didn't pepper their goalkeeper. They looked really poor last night, and this system we're playing, I think it suits the France game. So, but how we can't adapt a system for when we play teams like this, it's a big concern. We've struggled against nations, and the results back that. It's statistically back it up. It's like people talk about the goal from distance. Oh, it's unlucky. when it happens once, it's unlucky twice, but now it's like a team.
Yeah. So what? Two things, right? One, we need to create more chances and adaptability around that, and then the long range goals. Can we talk about the long range goals? Is there a world in which that happens if he picks his full team last night? If Coleman is playing,
well, I suppose we don't.
If Egan's playing,
well, we've conceded them goals. People will say over the weekend, Josh Cullen adds to this Irish team and he makes us tick and all of these things, and that's what you're going to hear that over the weekend in the build up to the France game. But Josh Cullen's by and large been in the team when these goals have been conceded, so it is a problem. Like, it's something that has to be fixed.
Our press is starting too late, is it?
Well,
or too deep.
A good example of. I'm sort of not answering your question, but when you look at Callum O'Dowd last night, Ireland pressed with the front two. The fullback for Latvia had a field day, got the ball, and by the time Callum O'Dowd engaged them, he was in on our back four or back five, and the setup of the team is allowing. We're a little bit too passive in midfield, a little bit too, like, particularly against Latvia. And I'm almost reluctant to say that Stephen Kenny, I know, is Callum O'Dowd is like out press that ball really quickly. When Ferguson or Obafemi go and press, he goes and press really quickly. You've got three centre halves in behind you, and there's a flaw in our setup. I think.
It struck me watching it that people weren't fully aware. It wasn't unconscious about where they were supposed to be on the pitch when we didn't have the ball, that they were thinking about it a bit, and so that's where the disjointedness comes from. And obviously against France, Camavinga will drop deep and pick a pass, and suddenly the ball's in the edge of the 6-yard box.
I'm not in here in fear of the France game. I think we'll have a really good performance. I think it suits us. I think the shape of the team will be right. It won't be that high pressure. You let them have the ball, we'll drop in, we'll have a good shape about us, and by and large, we've done okay against the top nations. I'm not overly worried about that. I think we'll have a really strong performance. And I don't know the team, but just going back to last night, that ain't working against teams around us. And
so is there a world in which he's actually just playing that because this is Latvia and it doesn't matter and it's a friendly and actually it's better preparation? So he's kind of half in the Dunphy camp where he's like pushing people in the direction of this is how we're going to prepare. Like, because there's a limit of access.
Yeah, of course there is, and there's an element to that. Yeah, absolutely. So you play Matt Doherty because he's your number one player, and etc. But I think he's got a decision to make around that one now. Okay, so but we're not beating these teams around us, Jar, over the last 2 years. So, like, keep doing the same thing, expect different result. So something like, I worked with Stephen Kenny and we went to Zenit St. Petersburg. Okay, in European Europe, and people will say, was there anything on the line really? Yes, there was. We were trying to get out of the group at the time, and we went and attacked them, and you got Brazilian internationals. Giuliano was playing for Brazil at the time. They were worth a couple of $100 million, and I was working on a day job at the time when we done that. There was people but we went and had a go, and we attacked, and we hit the crossbar in the 92nd minute to get one of the greatest results of all time. And we went and had a go. We'd Horgan out wide, and I'm watching this team last night and it's passive and it's slow. And there's a lot to be excited about as well with the Ferguson, with small bones, with the young players coming through. And going, we've got to change from that and we've got to learn from that. Because that could have been, in a 2-game window, that could have been your first qualifying game against the Greece at home or whoever it could have been. And we've struggled in them games and we've got to learn from that last night. And that's where I asked the question. I think we've learned loads, but what have we really learned?
As you're saying, Ger, like, we look better in possession, formation-wise, than out of possession. And it's almost like I don't know if this is something, Vinny, but at international level, you obviously don't get as much time. The manager doesn't get as much time on the training pitch as perhaps he would like. Certainly not as much as at club level. But it's tougher to practice out of possession formations in training than it is. You know, you can set up. Well, you can set up in formation quite easily.
It's easier to set up without the ball, Shane, because it's a very simple drill. Like you get your players to play the ball. They do 11v0 or 11v11, and then once a goal breaks down, you're able to actually physically drag people. When we don't have the ball, I want you here. As I always say, the easiest part of football is to set up defensively. But so that's the easy part.
Is the problem that these players wouldn't have been used to playing with each other? Is that too easy?
Well, no, solution? But I challenge you on Ireland are really good on the ball. That part. I challenge you on that. Like, what's really good on the ball? Being easy on the eye, passing it sideways, backways. Like, against Latvia last night, we should have created the quality of the opposition and the quality we have. We should have created chance after chance. I'd accept that result, and people would, if we'd have peppered their goal. The first goal, brilliant, small ball standing up for a wing back. We didn't play like that last night. So I challenge your question about being good on the ball.
Is there any world in which you go 2-0 up and you get a bit complacent? Kenny was, I don't want to use the word complacent, then he used the word complacent, and it did feel a little bit like the sting went out of the game and we're not good enough really yet to have... We can't control possession for 35 minutes and just kill the opposition to the point where we know we're going to score a third goal, but it'll come after 70 minutes or around then.
Yeah, but you do that by creating chances, by getting into the fun zone, and eventually you wear a team back. And what happened, that game switched. We went 2-0 up, and you got the sense, and it's very easy after the fact, and I wasn't mic'd up, or the two lads I was sitting with, you could see Latvia growing into the game because we lacked intensity. You could see, and when you got the goal from distance, you're like, okay, it's from distance, bit unlucky, but no, they got better because why? And I make this point, our right wing back wasn't on the end line, crossing again for a left wing back, which sent them back, and so we lacked intensity last night, and we got punished, almost punished for it.
So what are the fixes? What are the fixes for that?
Well, I'll give you what are the fixes. Like, okay, we struggle with some wingers, but I still think we have enough to come up with formations of a 4-2-3-1 when we play these teams, or some variant of that. But look at the fix. Mikey Johnson came on and Chidozie Benya and just gave the whole team a lift and put them under pressure. Why? There was intensity in our forward play. There was people running. There was more movement. There was and sometimes it's easy when subs comes on when a game is stale, to be fair, right? And the old pros will tell you that it's always the fellas come on and the game wasn't going well. But it is about intensity. It's about, like, you can play Chidozie and Benya as a wide man. Absolutely. You could play small ball as one of the narrow ones. You could play, now we've got Mikey Johnson, who I think will be a really exciting player, but he doesn't fit into our system because he's an out-and-out winger.
Yeah, but Kenny was like, in the post-match, I love wingers, Tony. I was like, well, okay, that's interesting. So, and he was like, because he came... As soon as they got the international clearance, he came straight into the squad, and then he came straight into the team the first time they could get him. So maybe he's not a one-man solution to this, but certainly...
I don't buy into that. We don't... Like, Callum O'Dowd has been around for a while, and he's now playing wing back, but he's such a winger. Look... It doesn't necessarily need wingers to play that system. If you don't have wingers, you can still play with a front three. A lot of teams do it. They can play narrow, but it's about releasing your fullbacks. It's about getting 2v1 overloads against weaker teams. A lot of the teams, you look at, the lesser nations have come here and they've shut up shop in the middle or space out wide, and we're ultimately on a 1v1 out wide instead of 2v1s where you create a lot of stuff, and we've got improving it.
Does Will Smallbone start? Like, he certainly put his hand up for maybe more significant inclusion against France, but then as we were saying this morning, who do you leave out if Will Smallbone does come in?
That's the question in terms of the team. I think I thought people saw Will Smallball's goals for the under-21s and they speak them up, but his overall performances against any team we played, Italy, whatever, at the 21s, he looked to cut above everyone on the pitch. I think Will Smallball's at a stage in his career where club form has to go well from, and I think there's another level from. Who do you leave out? Depends on the way he sets up the team, to be honest with you. Jason Knight, I'd imagine Stephen came into this with a sort of clear idea within reason of who's going to start against France on Monday. The challenge is someone like Smallbone done very well, but does he put him into the team? I think the only thing we know now is Bazunu will play. I think of a good idea that it'll be the back three will be Egan, O'Shea and Collins. Collins looked rusty as hell last night. I don't know what we came across on TV, but I think that's set in stone, and Josh Cullen will play. Beyond that, I actually don't know what he's going to do. I would play Seamus Coleman on one side, and whether it's Matt Doherty or you couldn't rule out James McLean for his running power on the left. Cullen Malumbi, I think we have to now play against France with, I mentioned it before, maybe a boxing midfield of Jason Knight and Smallbone making those forward runs, what McGrath done against Portugal away, with one centre forward. Still not convinced he's going to play Evan Ferguson. Haven't been convinced about that.
Really?
I'm not convinced about that. I think if Adam Ida was fit,
Jesus,
I think
he has
would
to
have
play
started.
Vinny, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think he does, but I haven't been convinced about it. But the other thing is then if he's not going to play that way, it has to be Chidozie Ogbenya who gives you that running power back into positions, because we know how France play. I don't think they'll overchange how they play. He'll be.
So you would play Ogbenya ahead of Obafemi for the France game?
Yeah.
And
Obafemi looked like last night to me that he's not playing enough football.
He was rusty, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I just thought he wasn't involved enough, nearly. Because you know what he's capable of, that's the problem. So you're like, well, this guy, we know what his top standard is, but he just, every time he got the ball, you were like, even his runs off the ball, Vinny, I don't know if you noticed that as well, he almost didn't seem as lively as he usually is.
To be fair, the players, like, they struggle to play nowadays, a centre forward with another one beside them, because they're just not doing it all the time. And yeah, that will take time. If him and Ferguson are going to emerge as a partnership, it will take time to develop, but we've got options. But yeah, the team, I'm probably further away from what I thought the team would be going into the game last night than when I came out of it.
Yeah, and look, I see, so if he'd picked the team that he wanted to play against France, we'd all know exactly what he's going to do. And this, I guess, is why you earn your corn as a manager. Like, and I do think that there's an eye on the Greece game, because the next window is Greece away and Gibraltar at home. Yeah. And if we get 6 points from that, irrespective almost of what happens against France, we'll feel good about life. If we get 4 points from that, that's probably at the break-even situation where it's our results versus the top two teams versus Greece's results of the top two teams, and if we beat them at home. And that's the ball game for this.
Yeah. I suppose, like, the other thing though is, over the years we've always had a big result against a big nation. So, you know, part of me would like Holland to beat France. A bit of turmoil, the French can fight with each other, have a bad weekend, the Irish weather, the hotel hopefully is not great that they go to, the Wi-Fi's down or something, they all start fighting and we have a magical night, you know, that
send the drones out to block the Wi-Fi.
Players get upset not having Wi-Fi, so something along them lines is what you hope for. I think we'll need a big result in this campaign. So I mean, why not be Sunday? Like, I keep coming back to it, the Stephen Kenny I know would be thinking about getting a result like 1-0 or 2-0 and a good performance is not what his mindset is.
So we should go through the team just to what your team would be and what you think might be picked. But then just the second goal, obviously the first goal is now an issue because it's happened so much, and I definitely agree with that, to be honest. The whole it's world class, nothing you could do better. There's probably a lot you can do. Second goal is a bit of a disaster because it's just a set piece, a run of the mill set piece, and there's 3 separate opportunities for the defenders to do something about it. Yeah,
and I think Alba Mamadeli's got to do better first. Like, there's a couple of errors. I think it gets a deflection on the way in, but I've seen, if anyone knows anything about coaching goalkeepers, that's something they work on. There's a new piece of kit now where the ball hits and it spins in different ways. I think Kevin should have done a little bit better for it. I also think if you look at the first goal from behind, he doesn't sort his feet out properly, so he's diving sort of under the ball as opposed to up. So that will have to be looked at again. He's not playing loads of football, but there was a couple of fundamental errors in the second goal where we just lacked a little bit of aggression to go and win a proper header and head it 25 yards as opposed to into a little danger, and didn't get a good enough pressure on it. So there's probably about 3 hours in that goal.
Is that fixable? Is that like an attitude where we have to be on it from the first second to the last against France? Everybody around me is world class, so I just need to make sure that I'm giving this absolutely.
And that's why I don't fear against France, because I think your mindset's completely there. You probably had that ball 5 yards further clear, and when it does break, you're throwing your body on the line and it hits you in somewhere where it hurts, and you move on and you don't concede. I'd like to think I could sort of forgive that one, but I'd be disappointed in players in terms of their errors for that goal. Absolutely.
So we know it's Bazunu, we know it's the back 3. It's Seamus Coleman. The news on Coleman was that he had a slight strain in the last game against Everton, but afterwards Kenny said he's going to be fine, so we taking that at face value that he's going to start, I think, and captain the team.
I think so.
And then who would you pick on the left at this stage? Haven't seen Doherty play last night. Was the whole point of giving him the game time so that you feel good about starting him?
I think we'll probably start Doherty. I think I'd say he'll get the game time. I know Colm had done quite well last night, but I think you go sort of horses for courses and you back your better players.
Yeah,
you have to carry one or two. Like we're carrying Collins, who looks a little bit rusty. You think he'd be fine. A couple of balls over the top, and we were like, there was danger. So the reaction speed wasn't great. But I think that back five is set up.
Okay, and then in midfield, you had the box of 4. So is that 2 6s really?
Yeah, I think Cullen and Malumbi will play. I think the two of them will play. It's about what we do ahead of them. So Cullen is obviously one of Stephen's mainstays, and people, really rate him and how he passes the ball. I think he's done really well for Burnley this year, obviously, so he goes into the team. Malumbi's energy is what we need. I think he's surpassed Jeff Hendrick in terms of that position for us, so he will play. And then Jason Knight's done excellent for us. Jamie McGrath's done excellent in these games as well. I wouldn't rule out him coming into the team. For me, personally, I played with 2 10s, as in Smallbone and Knight.
Right, Smallbone straight in, right?
Smallbone ahead, say on the right and Knight on the left, to go and support when it's on, but also give that defensive cover. They've used that system before, but was only really one midfielder done, and Knight does it now to shore, or McGrath has done it to shore it up, and then one centre forward is how I would play. But
who's that?
I think Evan Ferguson has to start.
Yeah,
he's a level above. I'm still not convinced by it yet. I just haven't been.
I think, like Nathan's been making the point, that if we lose the game and Ferguson doesn't start, you're making a big rod for your back. And I know you shouldn't care about what the response outside is going to be, but you have to, because
maybe I'm overthinking it. But I've heard a couple of interviews and a couple of things where I've not known this man through football for 20 years and going, was he really? Not that he's not convinced, just
he's trying to manage the hype. And
it's just going, okay, so just something has created a doubt in my mind. Small point, but he wore 19 last night. I would have given him number 9, but that's me. There you go, there's number 9, son, going. But look, they're just small points and they're niggling away my mind. I could be wrong. We'll find out. Is
any of it just trying to manage the hype and expectation, and because it is?
No, I don't. That's not Stephen's style. No, I don't.
Ferguson doesn't seem bothered by it all anyway.
Yeah, I think no. That's like if he was club manager to him, maybe, but internationally, like I think a lot of the crowd turned up to see him.
Oh, totally.
I think the reaction of him last night. I got my sister and our 2 kids tickets for the game. And my sister said, "Will Evan play?" And I said, "No, I don't think so. I think they'll keep him for Monday." And like, my niece was tempted not to go. She wanted to go see Ferguson, but they were delighted they ended up playing. So look, I think there's a huge reaction to this kid and the momentum with it, and so I think the goal last night will certainly push, but I wouldn't be shocked. That's the way I put it. If Adam Ida started or somebody else started.
Maybe the injury and the doubt about Ida even joining up in the first place, and it takes that out of. Sean St. Ledger has an interesting life. He's working for Leicester as a scout. Bumped into our former colleague Owen Sheehan in Colombia at one stage.
Yeah, he was telling me he was in France. He's all over the world. Yeah, so it's a great gig. Goes to watch players at really high level. Speaks really highly of Brendan Rodgers. Anyone that's ever known Brendan Rodgers or worked with him speak really highly. And I think Leicester, because of the sort of financial fair play or whatever's going on financially, are sort of operating off a different market. And Brendan Rodgers has always been strong in that sort of French market and sort of picking players from outside. If you think of Kante, obviously he went to Leicester before him, but if you think of the players that they've had success at Leicester, Fofana, Kante, all these players, it's a really interesting gig he has.
Yeah, good stuff. So you feeling okay about this? We a draw / famous night?
Yeah, I think we'll do really well in the game. I think it'll be a great night. I don't see us being turned over and overly beaten, but no, I think it'll be a really good Irish night. Looking forward to it, and to finish on a real positive, the amount of young players coming through, we've got something exciting ahead of us. We just need to get the very best out of them.
All right, Vinny, good stuff. Thanks a million for that. It is 8:28 this morning. After the break, Ciara Griffin previews the women's Six Nations start this weekend. First, here's goal scorer Colm O'Dowda chatting with Stephen Doyle post-match last night.
Colm O'Dowda, you had to make a very good run to get your first international goal. Tell us a bit about it, and how does it feel to finally got off the mark?
Yeah, I'm really happy, really happy. It was a long overdue goal, I'd say, from obviously making my debut, 2016, and 26 caps later, which I was just saying to those guys there, probably, I know it's been a bit of a roller coaster I've had a lot of injuries and stuff, but delighted to be back out there and contribute, obviously with the goal.
And you've always been at the front of Stephen Kenny's mind as well. He's watched you an awful lot with Cardiff City. Is he trying to tap into this new role for you, where you've kind of been used more as a defensive left midfielder? I'd say so, yeah. The left wing back role is something I've been familiar a lot, especially this season with Cardiff City, but it has been. But then I think if you look at the system Ireland we've been playing for, I'd say since Stephen Kenny's been involved, you have to adapt to it. And so I'd say it's, as well, I've been quite lucky we played that system at Cardiff as well. But I'd say there'll be times when I've been at Cardiff I've had to play as a left back in a four. So it's, like you said, it's getting used to that position. And listen, I'm getting a bit older now, so I like to say I can adapt, and I know the game well, and obviously playing in a left midfield role, I know what it takes to be a left back, so it's just getting used to it again. Are you daunted at all by playing France on Monday night, if you're going to have to play that role and you're going to be very sharp defensively? I'm sure you saw them playing at the World Cup. Yeah, no, and obviously I've played against France before, so I know what they're like, and that was just before they went on to win the World Cup too. So no, I wouldn't say I'm daunted, but it will be a hell of a game, won't it?
Yeah, he's ready for it. Look, a little side note, those hoodies look great.
Yeah,
they are nice. That's a nice colour.
Decent merch.
Yeah. Colm was like finally through the window going, I'm not even there to bask in my reflected glory. 8:31 this morning. If you want to get in touch, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 is the WhatsApp number. OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night edition available now. Let's turn our attention to the Six Nations, which kicks off this weekend. Ciara Griffin, former Ireland captain, is with us to help us preview it. Ciara, good morning to you. How are you?
Morning, how are you keeping?
How is your FOMO heading into this weekend? Are you happy as Larry not to be involved, or are you thinking, I could still be there?
No, I'm happy with my decision now. I'm content enough, Ger, so I'm happy out watching in from the outside. Looking forward to cheering on the girls in the weekend.
It's been a really long time since we've seen this team play any rugby. It was the tour to Japan, when obviously things went really, really well for them, and it felt like they were building up a sense of identity and confidence and the magic word momentum, but that's kind of disappeared. We don't really know what to expect from them ahead of this tournament.
Yeah, you're right. I suppose the Japan tour in September seems like a lifetime ago. I suppose since then, they've had the end of the AIL tournament, then they went into the Interpros and following into Celtic Cup Challenge, and I think they've said a lot that they got a lot of game time in that Celtic Cup Challenge, and while the English players were playing over in the Premiership, and that's the only game time they've really had. They've had no real warm-up games in the run into this. It's just been camps. So I think the Saturday will be we'll see where they are, we'll see where they set their bar, and they'll have to go from there.
How difficult is it for them to turn it on, like at international level? We keep hearing about the step up from club to international level, and you have experience of it, but when the gap has been so long, does it make it more pronounced?
It does, because it's like international level, nothing will prepare you for it, only test matches. You can do replicate as much as you want in training and under those scenarios, but it's not until you're in test rugby that you get that experience and build up that experience bank. So I think, look, it's a young squad. They've made that clear that they win for a young squad in terms of to develop and grow. But I do think, look, it will take a bit of time to find their feet, but hopefully they hit the ground running on Saturday.
It's funny, Ciara, the target for this Six Nations this year becomes quite obvious for the Irish team. Like, I guess it's closing the gap on England and France, but getting that top three finish because of this new women's 15 tournament in the autumn, where the top three from the Six Nations automatically qualify, it makes the top three all the more important.
It does completely, and that will be their target. Look, last year they finished fourth, so they will be looking to improve on that. And you said top three for WXV competition. That's the aim. You want to play top tier rugby. That's where you develop. That's where you grow the game. and that will be their target. They have 2 tough home matches in England and France, so they will be targeting their away games, and that's where the target will be. And if they secure those 3 away games, they hopefully should secure that top 3 finish.
How big is that gap between England and France and the rest? Like, is it huge? Is it reducing year on year, or where's it at the moment in your view?
Look, it is a big gap. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It is, even like the time when I was playing, it was a massive gap. You tried your best. You did as much as you could to try and close it, but they've been professional since the end of 2014 into 2017. So that is standing to them. They've those years built up, those years of experience as players playing together, and that good infrastructure there. They have a really good feeder system into their programs. Their club structure is solid, leads into their international setup, and there's a clear pathway. And look, just something we need to develop here in Ireland as well, that we get that pathway, we get that clear pathway from grassroots to green shirts, that there's a clear system and a clear progression, and that we are fighting at the top then when that is developed.
There's a debate raging within Irish rugby about whether or not we've made enough progress fast enough. And obviously the Sevens players won't be playing in the tournament this year, and in some ways that's good and bad, so that there's like at least a twin track approach to this, but there's clarity about what everybody's responsibility is going to be, and at the same time some of our best 15s players are obviously playing sevens, so there's a bit of a split personality about where we are. So what's your view now at this remove about the speed at which the progress is happening?
Yeah, look, I think we all want everything to happen straight away. But unfortunately, look, the progress wasn't made when it should have been. So now we're kind of playing a bit of catch up, So we are, that review, they've put in the structures, they're putting in clear structures now for developing international players to high quality, high standards. There's contracts. So it's not going to happen overnight. I think that's really important that people realise that, look, it's great that contracts have come in, but contracts have only been in since November. So you are playing a bit of catch up there. So I think it's important that players are given the opportunity to, I suppose, find their feet, find their style of play, but also, they need to put in performances too, and I suppose put their best foot forward. In terms of sevens and 15s, I think it's one way is that it's good that they set out from the start that sevens aren't eligible for selection for the Six Nations campaign. It gives players who are in camp, there's 32 players in camp, gives them an opportunity, to get a bit of game time, a bit of structure. And I suppose their hand up for selection and get a bit of confidence in their own performance as well. And it kind of, I suppose, keeps that cohesion in the group. So I think, it's a double-edged sword. It's good in some ways that it's a cohesive group, but then obviously you want your best players playing. But I suppose sevens they've made it clear that sevens priority is qualification for the Olympics, and you have to back that and you have to support that. So I think, once Irish rugby keeps growing, we'll be happy with that.
Do you look at the squad, like when you see 8 uncapped players in the squad, for example, Ciara, do you see that as a glass half full thing? This is a positive thing, blooding new players. It's a good opportunity, especially with the sevens players absent, to kind of bring new players in? Or are you looking at it going, well, this is the Six Nations, we need to finish top 3, and a bit of experience would do no harm?
Yeah, you're right, it is a glass half full. It's great that they have identified 8 new players to hopefully be up to international standards. But as you said, you want experience. Going into a Six Nations campaign. Six Nations campaign can be brutal. It's really attritional. It's weeks on the trot, constantly training, constantly trying to up your game, and you want to be able to play under fatigue. And then often there comes a bit of mental fatigue as well, where your body might be fine, but mentally you could be a bit tired from all the go, and that's where experience kicks in. And I just hope that they will use the experienced players, and younger players will go to those experienced players, ask for advice, ask for feedback, because that's how you grow. That's how you grow the game. It's peer learning. It's peer support. You're not on your own. It's a squad effort. I think it's very important that younger players coming into the group, that they realise that you're there for a reason. Back yourself, but don't be afraid to ask for support from a senior player as well, because they've been there before. They've done it. They might have a bit of advice or a few tips for certain scenarios, and that's how you get your game awareness and I suppose your game cuteness.
The game against Wales is actually an unbelievably important game. Like if you were starting first up against England or against France, that the job is to try not to get completely destroyed. But the game against Wales it's kind of a must win if you are putting your stall out to finish third.
Yeah, completely it is. And look, it's a rematch of the first round of last year. And unfortunately they're away this year, so you lose that home advantage. But I think, look, if you look at what they're saying in media, that they're happy with the preparation. They're happy with the group and that they feel confident going into it. So hopefully now we do see that result and they get that away win. And it's nice to get your first away win, the first round of the Six Nations. It kind of gets that momentum, and it's all about building momentum as well. And you kind of get that confidence. So I think it's very important that you do set out to win and secure those points for the first round.
Emma Swords is an interesting one, Ciara. Like, fascinating that, like, initially capped by England, declared for Wales, and now she's in the squad to play against Wales for Ireland this weekend. So already she's had a bit of a yo-yo when it comes to her international allegiances. But, like, could she go straight into the team? I know she's uncapped, but, like, she's involved in that Harlequin setup, and she's got a little bit of experience as well. So do you put her straight in? And maybe she's got a point to prove against Wales as well, I suppose.
I think, as everyone, you have to earn your stripes. You have to earn your selection. So I suppose she'd be the same as every other player up there. You know what, they are fighting for their position. They're fighting for that jersey. So I think it's all based on, I think no one owns a jersey. It's based on performance. So when the person's performing in camp, they put their hand up for selection, and so it kind of has to go from there.
Alicia Hughes, I guess, is the tried and trusted.
Yeah, exactly. She has the experience. She's good game time experience. Has a lot of Six Nations experience under her belt as well. Is used to playing Wales and control a game. So I think you might go for experience. Your first round. You want to make it nice and controlled, that you control the tempo and you can dictate what happens. So it might go for an experienced 9 for that.
Greg McWilliams was commenting a number of different times during the Six Nations last year about how it was performances over results quite often. Like, are we still at that stage, do you feel, Ciara, like where you'll take a performance this weekend as opposed to a result? Or are we now at the stage where we kind of have to be winning games in the Six Nations, I guess, to push on?
Yeah, look, I suppose the thing there is if you get a good performance, you'll get the result too. So you can use it as a double whammy. But I think at this stage, with that new WXB competition, you have to get the results. You need to get 3 solid results in this to secure that. And I suppose, look, with that you have to push performance too. So hopefully you'll get the double result from that. But obviously you want to see good improvement week on week. Also to justify your improvements, you need those results.
Sorry, Ciara, what's your prediction for the weekend then?
I hope to see Ireland win the weekend. I think it'll be a tight game. I that's my prediction, but that they'll hopefully get the points through. I'm aiming for an Irish win. All
right, Ciara, enjoy it. Thanks a million for joining us. Cheers.
Cheers, thank you.
It's Ciara Griffin, former Ireland captain, giving us a preview of the Ireland-Wales game this weekend at the start of the Six Nations. This is OTB AM. It is 8:41 this morning. If you've just joined us, we've been talking with Vinny Perth a little bit earlier on about the Ireland team and what team he expects to play. He was putting Smallbone straight in, but he's in your camp.
I think I agree with him. Players who are on form, you've got to put them in. O'Dowda's probably another one. I'd nearly start O'Dowda at left wing back ahead of Doherty. There is the argument there, of course, that Doherty got the 90 minutes or the bit of time under his belt last night, so maybe he'll be more ready to take on France. But
he's a Premier League player, and O'Dowda at the moment is a Championship player, and so that's why.
Yeah, but a Championship player in top form at a good Championship club as well in Cardiff. I just think form is important when it comes to picking the team on Monday night, and that's why I'd put Smallbone into the team. I'm fascinated to hear him talk about the fact that he's not 100% sure if Stephen Kenny's going to start Evan Ferguson. I'm in your camp. I think it's a risky manoeuvre by Kenny.
It's too risky. He has to start him. He absolutely has to start him for all sorts of reasons. He's our best player. That's the first reason, and then secondly, if you don't pick your best players in the team to play the biggest games, let's cross that bridge when we come to it. But
obviously, if you bring him off the bench with half an hour, 35 minutes left, there's a massive boost in terms of the crowd. And
we know we're going to get a big boost from the subs now because we actually have difference makers in terms of the style of play. Stephen Fraser says Ireland should have won the game 4-0. It's up to the management and the coach to not let the concentration dip, and it happened. You do definitely think about conceding from set pieces and conceding the same goal repeatedly and think, okay, there's something wrong there that they need to work on. The fact that it's happened in this game as opposed to in the game against France is certainly, it gives them the next few days to concentrate the minds a little bit. James McCullough says, I'm surprised there aren't more of us who think we're going to win on Monday against France. We always play well against better opposition, and we've got a young and exciting team. Finally, Coy Big. Adrian McGrath says Ireland's first goal came from Malumbi's miscontrol, forcing him to just boot it forward directly. From there it was brilliant, but the start was a fluke. A little bit. There was definitely a little bit of a, I'm just going to hike this forward. It was the Michael Darmacaulay punch to get the ball to Kevin McMenamin.
Can I just say one thing as well on Caoimhín Kelleher? So when you're at the match and you want your goalkeeper to be the most vocal person on the pitch, he's not the most vocal. Even after the couple of goals, you expect a response from the goalkeeper. The second goal especially. Now I'll watch it back to see what his exact response was, but he didn't seem that angry. If I'm a goalkeeper, yes, he could have done better for the second goal, but the defenders in front of him certainly could have done better.
I don't care about performative anger.
No, but not performative, actual, legitimate, authentic anger.
But like,
you should be angry at a goal.
But how do you show authentic anger? Like,
scream at the couple of lads who made the
performative bollocks.
But that's not performative.
It is.
No, it's not.
You can't just like, I'm showing you all that I'm angry. No, but so therefore you feel you're policing his anger.
Do you think Peter Schmeichel was performative in all of his anger? And not legitimate in some of his anger.
In the vast majority of his anger, he was performative, as according to Roy Keane.
I think
anyway, let's not talk about Schmeichel because I'm
talking about Kelleher. Like, Bazunu is more vocal than Kelleher, is my point, and that was one thing that stood out to me about Kelleher's performance last night.
I think that's got to come at game time.
Really?
I do, and I think also they can work on that kind of stuff. Like, you need to shout to your defenders, and like I guess maybe he didn't feel like shouting the odds when he has no relationship with them, and this is about building a relationship because we might need him against Greece if Bazunu gets injured. Like, I'm not going to mark him down for not slamming the ground and going, I'm William Gallas.
It's just one little thing I noticed that I was like, well, you want your goalkeeper to be more vocal. 100% more.
I agree with that. But I don't care that he doesn't like pull his jersey off. The gods have been against me. That doesn't. You can't be doing that.
It's not always performative, Ger. It's not always performative. Sometimes the goalkeepers get angry at terrible.
Yeah, but they don't have to show it to you.
Not to me, but to the defenders.
Look, I'm sure. Anyway, 8:45 this morning. John Duggan's with us. John,
good morning, Shane. How are we doing?
Morning.
Are we all angry?
No. No, I'm not.
I think I last got angry when I saw Messi put on the bisht, but I won't go there because I'll get in trouble.
I think we're optimistic, slightly optimistic, John. I would say both of us ahead of Monday. Vinny Perth has certainly added to that feeling.
I don't know about optimism. I would say hope.
Hope.
Yeah, and hope isn't it's not a tactic. You got two hopes: Bob Hope and no hope. Who was that? Who was on the show last?
I was there. I was watching it from the crow's nest. And what did I take out of it? Ferguson looked comfortable. He has a presence. He's got very good movement. Definitely looks physically ready. Should play against France. Smallbone, is he the new Wes in the future? Is very comfortable on the ball, tidy, and got a little bit of creativity about him. Spoke well as well to Stephen after. I thought that's always important as well. And who's going to come in? So Bazunu will come in, Egan will come in, Colm will come in. Cullen's important. The point you raised about the concession of goals is mad. Like Luxembourg, Azerbaijan, Armenia, now 2 against Latvia from outside the box. That strikes me as something that isn't a random pattern, that we need to screen that up. Who's going to play right wing back against the French? Coleman, who is going to be fit, or Doherty? Is Kylian Mbappe going to skin us alive? Look, the crowd, there was only 41,000 officially registered. There was a bad night in Dublin. But we do need the crowd to be a 12th man on Monday, because we do need to make the French feel uncomfortable and the Dutch feel uncomfortable when they come to Dublin, because it becomes a technical game, and I know we're trying to play the right way. I think that'll just play into their hands a bit. We need to get under their skin. So there's a bit of a mixture between like not playing caveman football and playing technically good football, but also getting under the skin of the French on Monday. They're the kind of the few things I took out of it. Mikey Johnston, like Jinky Johnston. Maybe we need to go back to the granny rule and see who else is out there, if he's making such an impact after half an hour against Latvia last night.
The Azerbaijan goal was outside the box as well, was it? I'd forgotten it was that one.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And Cullen is on the field. Malumy's on the field for that one. Cullen is on the field for the Luxembourg one. So he's not going to be a one man.
He's not the saviour
for that.
Yeah, and that just strikes me as a little bit of back to the point I've been talking about on the show for 6 months to a year. We need to beat the weaker teams. You can't do anything. You can't be plucky against the French and lose 1-0 unless you're beating Greece twice in this campaign. And that's where this whole thing
Greece
will
aren't
go.
a weaker team though. Like, just for we should put that on that. Like, our expectation should not be that we're automatically going to. So I agree with you about Gibraltar and Latvia and Estonia and those teams. But Greece are going to look at us and go, we should be beating them.
But in this group, they're the weaker team compared to the two others. So we have to be beating Greece.
Yeah, look, I think that the results against Greece will dictate whether or not we finish third or fourth.
It'll also dictate the mood music around Kenny, I think, Stephen Kenny.
Yeah.
Their Greece results. Now, hot June doesn't help, but they're the games. They're the two games. Like, if we lose with honour to the French and the Dutch, we trying to find our way through the playoffs and to get into this Euros in the meandering way, then you can say, fair enough, we just got a bad rub of the draw, and we can definitely see progress in the team. I think what we're trying to see is progress. And last night, like the Armenia game, I know this was a friendly last night, but that was a 3-2 as well. It's just that switching off, the sloppiness. Can we find a way of getting rid of that?
Yeah, that'd be good.
And then getting on the front foot in terms of the new players we're bringing in.
What's losing with honour to those teams? Like, is progress not picking up some points, like in those 4 games against the Dutch and the French? Like, do you want 4 points maybe from a win and a draw and 2 defeats in those games?
Well, that'd be amazing.
I'd take your arm off for that, of course.
I'd take 2 points at this stage. 2 home points would be 2 home points and 2 defeats is what you would expect from Tier 1 nations against us, who are technically a Tier 3 nation.
So I was just going through Stephen Kenny's record. Played 31 games, won 9, drawn 10, lost 12. 4 competitive wins and 21 competitive matches. I think in the past, when we played the French, even in the 70s, 77, 81, when we beat them here in Dublin, when we weren't qualifying for anything, the Dutch in 2000 in Amsterdam, the Dutch here, we want to be going through 15 to 20 minute spells when they're really on the rack. Even if we lose, there's got to be a sense of...
Frustrate them.
Like Spain came here now, we had a much better team in the late 80s and they were terrified.
That's the key point though, isn't it? That all those teams who you're talking about, they had Brady or Giles or McGrath or Roy Keane, and this team does not have one of those players. Evan Ferguson might become one of those players, but he's not yet. And so I don't expect us to have France under the cosh for 15 minutes, really. I expect us to create a chance or two, and if it falls to the right person and we don't kick it wide...
So what are we hoping for then? Like a Germany Shane Long night when they bombard us and we get lucky, we get a breakaway goal?
I think that's our best hope, yeah. Absolutely. I don't see us having the quality against this French side in particular to dominate possession for any stretch of the game. Not a 10-15 minute period, because they can just step bodies into midfield. They can physically brutalise us if they decide to,
Are we now looking then at a bleak landscape for the next 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 years?
No, I think that the age profile of the team last night and
23 and a half.
Yeah, it's really interesting, and I think that like you can see a relationship developing between Obafemi and Ferguson. You can see Chidozie Benny having a really important role to play in the team. I think Mikey Johnson was a revelation in the 15 minutes. Now I don't know if he ever does that again for us, but certainly we will always have that. Like, just bring him off the bench. There's a game changer.
Well, he's almost like an upgrade on McLean in a way, and maybe different types of players. But one strikes me back to the granny rule. Like Houghton's, the Aldridges came from this kind of system. Are there others out there that might be interested in playing?
You making a call out on air now?
Yeah, like come on.
Let's be having you.
You want to just check out your family tree, folks. If you're playing in the UK, if you're playing like in good teams in the Championship or in Scotland, or even
it's got Argentina. That's the place where we need to be scouting.
Yeah. Where there's actually a town called Duggan.
Duggan.
But just outside Buenos Aires, and a town called Murphy as well, Nathan Murphy.
Come here. Is there anything else going on?
No, that's it. That was just kind of my thought over what was happening last night. But yeah, the French coming. I think a lot of this will be down to the French and the Dutch's attitudes. There is World Cup hangover potential.
Definitely.
So I think that is certainly something. And also, like last night, the crowd will be definitely up for this on Monday, and that'll be a big thing. But we have to turn, I think, Lansdowne Road into a bit of a fortress.
Yeah. Can I just, before we, John, thanks very much. More from John, of course, on Saturday afternoon. Before we get into the Gaelic football, Warren Gatland has picked his Lions team. This is Warren Gatland, the current Welsh coach, and he's doing it in the Telegraph, where he's a columnist. He's picked the Lions team he would pick. Who do you think is the number 10 on this team? Who do you think is the captain of the Lions? When it doesn't matter, when it's just written for a newspaper in England, when this does not matter at all, is it Owen Farrell? Is it Finn Russell? Who was the third out half that they even brought on that tour? I can't even remember. I can't remember. Oh, it's Johnny Sexton. He's gone for Johnny Sexton at number 10. Wow. Warren Gatland picks Johnny. This seems a little bit late, Warren. It seems like you've had the opportunity to do this one time before, but you can't make it up.
What's he doing here? What's his ulterior motive?
You can't fix it. My own team is not up to pace yet, so I would pick from other nations. So it's the Lions without the Welsh players. No Welsh players in my Lions 15. I don't know if is this like motivation for them. Is this Antonio Conte? Is this the Welsh version of Antonio Conte? Like where none of my players are good enough to play in the Lions? Or is it like, will they all go, well, fair enough, actually, you're right, we were absolutely abysmal. I don't know. But anyway, Johnny Sexton is the number 10 and the captain of the Lions. So maybe he'll stick around for 2 more years.
That doesn't make sense, does it? What is it, 10 Irish players picked out of the 15? I mean,
I didn't.
2/3 Irish.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Right. 8:54. Don't miss all the action in Rugby Daily today in your OTB podcast network, bringing you everything you need to know about rugby. It's all in partnership with Deliveroo. Deliveroo has some great bundles and deals, so open the app, make your choice, and watch your rider come to you. Deliveroo, food, we get it. Now, David Brady, good morning to you. How are you?
Jar, how's things, buddy? Shane?
Morning, David.
Top of the morning.
Welcome back.
I never left, as the man says. Never left, but good to be back chatting again. And as the man said, loving it. I have to say, it's great to be back immersed in a different type of football as well. Yeah, one that you don't get. You're not at the cold face as such.
Have you decompressed as you've returned to civilian life?
Look, I have to say, I very, very, very much enjoyed my year managing last year with Rathouth. Absolutely fantastic bunch of players. Really, really got a lot out of it. And again, it was fun, enjoyed it, and a little bit of success thrown in. But that's it was something that I wanted to do, and unfortunately, I couldn't continue from a work perspective. And it's nice to be back and watching 5 and 6 games every weekend now from a National League perspective, and not being gone 4 nights a week, and your son asking where's daddy, where is he gone to football when I'm only gone to the toilet. But yeah, that's the way it was ending up, to be honest with you. So yeah, it's good, but I miss it terribly, to be honest with you.
Okay, can we talk about this for a little bit, because I don't think everybody fully appreciates the level of commitment that it takes to manage a club team who are aspiring to be successful at the level that you guys were last year, and the knock-on impact that it has. And look, we're going to talk about the Donegal situation a little bit later on with Eamon McGee, but this is people's hobby that has taken up so much of their lives. So how did you do you see yourself going back to that at some point? Have you had your taste now, and that's it? You've sated that hunger, or what's the own kind of tension that you have in your own head about what happens next?
Honestly, it's probably bloody made it worse, the hunger. So it has, and it's not just a team that's aspiring to be maybe winning a county championship, and it's any manager, any person that I see that is involved with a club team, whether it's a selector, coach or manager, I take my hat off to them, because it's an unbelievable effort. It's an unbelievable effort because nobody is just doing it half-arse. It's not tokenistic. It's absolutely all in. And I knew exactly what it was going to be like. The commitment that's needed from a manager's perspective, from a life perspective, and it superseded that, and it's a phenomenal amount of time. Like in Rathouth, we were 4 nights a week. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, every single week. That's just on the pitch. But it's the time off it, and it's you can't just be a manager on the pitch. You have to, off the pitch and everything else. It's a phenomenal amount of time. You come home from training, and your phone then is your focus, because then you're organising, you're touching base, and it's and if you have that collective buy-in from a club and from the players, from the panel, like we had a panel of 36, you have to respect each and every individual that puts their shoulder to the wheel in club football. And let me tell you, Jar, it's not for the so-called money that people are doing it. It's really, really, for me, I got so much out of it. We could have lost the county final, we didn't, and we had a nice run in Leinster, and I want more of it, but I just couldn't. I couldn't commit. Like I'm joining from Vienna today from a work perspective, but that's that's another story. But I loved it, absolutely, and it's whetted my appetite.
It's not for the faint-hearted either, David. Like, we saw the emotion from you with some of the interviews after matches, and even action on the sidelines during games as well, which was brilliant to see, because you live and breathe every moment. But it's similar. I remember chatting to Davy Burke, the Roscommon manager, about this, and he said that, after matches on a Sunday, he'd come home absolutely exhausted, having not played himself, just living and breathing every moment on the sidelines. Was that something for yourself as well? Like, do you come home from games just completely beaten?
You do, but it's not that sideline situation. It's the build up to it. It's the week before, and again, as the games goes on and it gets more important, it does kind of say to yourself, God, I need to breathe out. But then you're back at work on Monday morning. Like, Davy has done a phenomenal job in Roscommon, and I remember talking to Davy, and I committed to going with Davy as part of his ticket for Kildare. And he had a young child. And I'm going, Jesus, Davy, you're mad altogether. And, a young baby. It was only like weeks, I think, 3 or 4 months. But it's that commitment, but you have to refocus, reset. But it's about a game of balance. And I think people think about these, backroom teams in inter-county especially. But you need it. You need it because there's so much to do. It's 24/7, and you have to allow guys take up 3 or 4 hours of that 24 hours.
I did not know that you had committed to being part of Davy's backroom team in Kildare. How close do you think you guys got to getting the gig?
It's not, your backroom is very important on what to bring and the experience to bring. Davy was well there. Very, very disappointed that he didn't get it. But again, you say to yourself, if I was, as I said to David, I said, look, if we were in that interview panel, we'd have nearly given it to Glenn and the guys, to be honest. And you couldn't nearly but. And again, it's a hard ask. It's a hard ask. And again, you go in with great plans, great expectations, and you have a focus on what you want to deliver. And sometimes that doesn't always turn out to be that way. But it's Davy will at some stage manage Kildare, but he'll take no questions on that over the next year or two, because he's fully immersed in Roscommon and has done extremely well.
That's the thing. I'm sure a lot of people in Kildare are looking over the hedge and going, he seems to be like a kind of Jose Mourinho style, like effervescent character who comes and injects something immediately in, and they're like, maybe we could have done with a little bit of that in our lives.
And look, it'll happen for Kildare, so it'll happen for Kildare, and the timings mightn't be right, but then the guys still have a job to do, and they'll focus for the championship, so they will in the last game of the league. But and again with the league, and I see people criticising it, and it's nothing perfect, but for me it's been a very, very entertaining league, a very knowledgeable league. The way now you only have a short run in from a league to championship. You don't have that lovely 6 weeks of, maybe at times it was 8 weeks of a window before your next championship game. It's just constant, and there's going to be no Houdinis pulled out of the hat. A lot of things what teams are working on, they're introducing into the National League, and I can't see things being turned on their head. And there'll be nuances and changes, but it won't change dramatically.
I do feel like there's a period of the next 3 to 5 years maybe where we don't fully understand exactly how the calendar is going to work in favour or against some teams. Tommy was on with us yesterday, and he was saying on the football pod they've been talking about the fact that I think I might get this wrong now, but Armagh might have to win 13 games to get to the All-Ireland final, whereas one of the other teams might only have to win 7 or 8 to get them, and that doesn't feel like it's totally fair.
That's that balance, and again, from a Mayo perspective, again, there's great talk and hope, but again, you're 11 or 12 games away from their scenario and situation to get to win an All-Ireland. So it's
or they get beaten in the first round of Connacht. They lick their wounds for the 6 weeks that they might have off before the start of the round robin, and they come out all guns blazing with an entirely pre-season block, a couple of weeks of challenge matches, and then you have your final team settled and ready to go and rested, and no suspensions and none of the controversies that are like there's been a conflagration in the Connacht final or the Ulster final, unlikely in either Munster or Leinster. Like there is a world in which actually being knocked out early is going to end up being the best thing for some team.
Oh, I look at on the 9th of April, I wouldn't take it as a my own man, but on the 10th, I'd nearly take it because you have that ability. And again, there's from a load perspective, I do know that the Mayo training is massively high. Their intensity is right up there because it's so consistent. The games are coming, nearly week in, week out. You play your last game this weekend, then you're looking at a National League final, and then you're looking at Roscommon. So it's there's no time to say, oh, we need to put an extra load or high intensity, or it's been done now, and it's bearing rewards from my own perspective. But you would go, that 6 weeks would be lovely just to really get certain players back into the groove. And again, as all successful teams, the Dublins, the Kilkennys of this world have always went to their A versus Bs were more important to them or more vital to them in their journeys than the actual championship games themselves.
Does the league take on more significance now, David? Listening to Kevin McStay after the win over Donegal for Mayo last week, he was saying they're delighted to be back in the league final because of how close it is to the championship. Like, I'm sure the hype train, as it always is in Mayo, is quite strong, but in particular, given how well they're playing, it's really taken off from the station at the moment.
Look, it's the one thing I find now this year with Kevin and the team is it's not about hype, and I love Kevin's attitude after games, talking just as there's no the process and we did this, and everyone is different. Kevin is a very unique individual, but I love his openness, and it's about they're setting out a plan, they're setting out a stall, but they're enjoying it. And again, it's about integrating a lot of young players there that I think will be challenged a lot more than they have been in the league during championship. But it is that fluidity. And ask any player, the one thing they don't mind doing is playing games. They're only 70 minutes. It's a focus at the end of the week, and it's a lot more enjoyable when you're winning, and that's what Mayo have done throughout this league. And from that, you get positivity and confidence, and they are at the moment the best team playing the best football in the country.
Kevin seems different as the manager than I expected him to be. Like, there's no guardedness, there's no punditry, there's no analysis of what's going on. There's just these are my truths, I'm answering your questions, and we're happy. And we're happy to be this open. And it's a very different approach to everybody else who's like desperately trying to keep secrets or not be themselves. And in a way, and I hate to bring everything back on rugby at the moment, but like, there's a bang of Andy Farrell off it.
There's a bang of being yourself off it. And that's as a manager, you have to decide, am I going to be the stereotypical, or am I going to, rein myself in? And you have to be measured, and you don't want to be giving the game away, but you just be yourself. Be yourself. Now, everyone is different. I'm different from you. Shane is different from me. So you have that personality, and you have that kind of. There wouldn't be a naivety with Kevin because he has been there and he's won Connacht championships. He's been with Roscommon. He's won an All-Ireland club. But sometimes you kind of go, just be yourself. That's all you ever ask. And managers are different. People are different. Personalities are different. But there is that kind of just be open. And I think a lot of it is the responsibility, like Andy Farr, like the Kevin McSays, and like the Jim Gavins of this world, that is, you put the responsibility and the onus and the ownership on the players, and their time to deliver and their time to talk and to present themselves is when the ball is thrown in and when the game is on. And I think that's it's nearly refreshing, but it shouldn't be. It's refreshing for someone just to be natural and talk it as it is. Now look at if there's a defeat or there's a sticky situation, which there will be over the next 12, 24, 36 months in Kevin's reign, he might talk a little bit different. But I have to say, from the Mayo supporters' perspective, they're really loving what Kevin is bringing, and it's shown on the pitch.
They obviously lost two key members of the defensive setup over the winter, and we weren't sure if it was going to happen, and it did happen. But they haven't really batted an eyelid. Like, obviously, maybe later on in the year they'll be like, oh, that's an Oisin Mullen sized hole, or that's a Lee Keegan sized hole, and we'll see what happens. But How have they made up for that? Are there individuals who are stepping up, or is there a change in defensive structure that is allowing them to deal with that? And again, is it too early for me to be saying that actually they're okay?
They will be tested. They're from a young, when you have the likes of Jack Coyne or Sam Callaghan who came in the last day, I think it was nearly Sam's, second league appearance as such. David McBrien, these are young guys. You had Pádraig O'Hora coming on the last day, which was a good sign. I think what Mayo have kind of introduced this year, and again, not that we've struggled, but again, when you're losing the Lees and you're losing the Ushings, you're going, where do we circumvent that? But how do we make it to our advantage? And I think they really have embedded Conor Loftus as a centre back, but not as a centre back where we would know it from. He's what you call a +1. He really is. He's dropping, he's covering, he's allowing that leverage for others to come back. And your defensive system is based on the guys that's willing to put their shoulder to the wheel. And I think for me, and he was missing last year through injury, and he's probably one of the unsung heroes in the Mayo setup, but he is absolutely vital. I don't think I've seen a midfielder or a player with his work ethic. Probably Paul Flynn reminds me a little bit. He is absolutely vital, and it's Jordan Flynn. Jordan is absolutely key to this team. The work that he does, and again, the link that he goes back and lets Conor sit as a +1 numerous times. It is vital, and that's what Mayo have kind of introduced. And again, they've introduced something that is, a new concept to not necessarily that, but their direct ball as well. And that's, again, a fingerprint of Donny Buckley. Donny Buckley just doesn't do the same thing year in, year out. He introduces certain type of styles and conditions and setups to all the teams he's worked with. Donny goes away at winter time and comes back with a whole new view on how football should be played and how you actually counteract what was done the previous year from a successful team. He goes to America, and I can see his fingerprints all over this team. But it probably, for me, they're very, very well set up, and they're not rushing it. They're shots from play. Their kind of productivity level is top class, and they're not panicking. They're keeping a great structure to their game. The runners are really, really coming, from deep, but they're allowing that ball go in, and you have that focus in Aidan O'Shea. Aidan is there, and I see people this week on Twitter saying, "Oh, look at the work he's doing." Aidan O'Shea was never shy of work. He was never lazy. It was probably the position for him. The position for him was always really full forward. That was always the focus. Like how he was picked, from a centre back position. It didn't serve that man any justice at all.
We'll obviously have plenty of time to analyse exactly the role of O'Shea and how well he's fitted into that full forward role. And it's not a revolution, but obviously we've seen it before. But it's working out, and there's a confidence about the team, and maybe we'll delve into that in the coming weeks. But I do want to ask you before we wrap up about Galway. On Saturday, Joyce used 9 players in the team that won the Under-20 All-Ireland 3 years ago. They were missing Comer, McDade, Cook, Jack Lynn, Ian Burke, and it was Shane Walsh's first start back. They're second in the league, and they have the experience and the heartbreak of last year to propel them forward. A little bit under the radar for a team who were like toe-to-toe with a Kerry team who were kind of shooing in for the next dynasty.
There's nobody under any illusion, especially here in Mayo, that Galway are now a massive dominant force in GAA. And again, you did ask the question after the All-Ireland final: is that them gone? Is that them? Is it a setback or a step forward? And as you said there, it's for me, it was 2 steps forward. They've used a lot of that under-21 team, that younger team that Pádraig was involved in, and he's now moulding them into senior players, and their big players are only coming back. They're again, we've always talked about, you're missing Killian, and you're not the same. And look at Comer is a massive link to them, a massive cog. But Galway will be a serious force to be reckoned with. And again, your Connacht Championship, like like I suppose Ulster to a degree, but your Connacht Championship has been the most competitive championship for the last decade in GA, and Galway they'll be at the top table in some way, shape or form this year. It could end up now that you have a Galway Mayo National League final on Sunday week, which was never, you kind of go, how does a team come back from the All-Ireland? Do they grow? Do they gain, confidence? Do they learn from the lessons? But Galway have certainly done that, and it's credit to Pádraig Joyce and his team there. But it's definitely, they definitely are going to be at the top table in some way, shape or form.
DB, good to have you back. Thanks a million.
Pleasure, Ger. Talk to you, buddy. See you, Shane.
Cheers, David. So David Brady giving us some thoughts on the situation there, and very interesting insight into just how much work it takes to be a club manager at this stage as well. I mean, we all know that, but at the same time, there are hundreds of club teams around the country in hurling and hundreds of club teams in football around the country who are doing that week in, week out. And it's a lot. It is a lot,
You'd be wrecked looking at David during matches, wouldn't you? Like, never mind the players.
He was an active participant.
More than just an active participant. The Galway thing's interesting. Like, you look back at that All-Ireland semi-final win against Derry now, who came through a tough Ulster Championship, and that Galway win in the semi-final stands out even more so now, given what Derry have done since. So, yeah, I think, as David says, Galway are rightly contenders. And I'm not just saying that because I have Galway blood. Promise.
We didn't get into the Meath situation there with DB, but we will at some point. We have a couple of weeks left of the a week left of the league, and we also have plenty of time to build up to the Leinster Football Championship. So getting a bit of pushback from Meath fans for what we were talking about on the show yesterday. Calm down, they've only been beaten by two teams who are All-Ireland contenders, but they weren't in the games.
Yeah,
they weren't in that Derry game at all. They couldn't lay a glove on them.
Beaten out the gate, I think.
And it was like, we should have won the game against Limerick. You should have won the game against Limerick, who the week after got rid of their manager. I'm like, what? I don't know. Anyway, OTB AM with Gillette Labs for the ultimate shave or your money back Neon Night Edition available now. It's 15 minutes past 9. Some highlights on the OTB Podcast Network today. Football Daily, your daily football fix with Phil Egan. Obviously loads of Ireland interviews and reaction coming through on that. Cahir O'Kane was on last night talking about Paddy Carr and his very short-lived stint as the manager of Donegal, and Wednesday Night Rugby with Keith Wood on last night. You can follow Off the Ball across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network. During the break, you're going to hear a clip from the latest episode of the Football Pod where Paddy James and Tommy talked about Louth's form so far this year. It has been spectacular. The Football Pod is in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Check out the hashtag #TheToughest for more. Up next, Eamon McGee on Donegal.
You're listening to OTB AM.
Off the Ball. I'm so intrigued by the relegation battle at the moment. 12th place Crystal Palace are 4 points ahead of 20th place. I want, Joe, a last day of the season. I know you're not as interested in things that aren't at top level, but tell me this wouldn't be amazing. Last day of the season, no team is relegated and 9 teams could go down.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
Just to read something that Kieran Byrne said this week, Gavin Devlin, we call him Horse. What he has done to our players and how he's instilled confidence is second to none. I've had a lot of coaches in my time in Gaelic football and Aussie rules, and Gavin sees the game like no one else. I honestly believe we have one of the best coaches in Ireland. These Loud lads are bulletproof at the minute.
Mm-hmm. But even if that's not the case, just the fact that they believe that he's the best coach 100%, is unbelievably powerful. Then if the fact that he is as well is the cherry on top. But once you get that buy-in, no matter what he says in training, we are doing that to the best of our ability, and whatever he says, we're taking it onto the field. Like, that's the buy-in that sometimes coaches, if there's any bit of doubt, they don't get that.
But you look at we Paddy Talley last year. He came on the show, brilliant guy, a brilliant coach, and the impact he had in Kerry as well. The manager, the figurehead is important, obviously. But having guys, and I agree with James, even if Gavin Devlin is a terrible coach, which he's obviously not, but the fact that his players and the team he's working with can say that about him, that just shows the buzz and the atmosphere and the energy around that camp as well. And it's so important getting those decisions right.
The Heineken Champions Cup is back. Leinster take on Ulster in the round of 16, Saturday, April 1st at 5:30 in the Aviva Stadium. Join the Sea of Blue for this massive inter-provincial clash. Tickets on sale now at leinsterrugby.ie. Terms and conditions apply.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
Right, so the news broke yesterday that Donegal were not on the hunt for a new manager because they've got an interim solution in place, but Paddy Carr had stepped away following a meeting with the senior players. It comes on the back of a tumultuous 6 months really, and maybe a little bit longer for Donegal. I'm delighted to say Eamon McGee is with us to talk to us a little bit about what's going on at the moment. Eamon, a very thoughtful column today from Tommy Martin in the Examiner, where he's talking about the fact that the business of Donegal football is now worth over $1 million a year in turnover, and that you have people who are managing that as their hobby, and that for all the best will in the world, that the business of running an inter-county team has outgrown the amateur ethos. And I have a lot of sympathy for that, because this seems like a situation which is very, very layered and difficult to kind of get to the very bottom of. And at the same time, the Donegal senior inter-county team are wondering who is actually in charge here.
Yeah, exactly. I think the inter-county thing has been a victim of his own success. It's grown and grown, and it's just too big a monster for, you know, someone that's doing a job, a full-time job, and then trying to run. Like most county boards, you know, if you're in that top table, are going to be up around the $1 million mark, and it's just ridiculous that we have people trying to do that in their spare time, run that monster in their spare time. But in saying that, it's no solace to the Donegal footballers. It's no solace to Paddy Carr to find himself put in a situation like that. And I think it's just I think the sentiment amongst Donegal and further field is that there's a lot of sympathy for Paddy. And the way and the situation was handled, the way his appointment was handled, and the fact that he found himself in that job, and probably maybe a wee bit over his head now, and that's a reflection of the appointment process.
Yeah, the appointment process. Jim McGuinness was talking about it on the Examiner podcast last week, and he was disappointed that his name was made public in the end, because he felt that it reflected on an unwillingness on his part to get involved, even though he actually had expressly said that he was willing to get involved. So whoever is looking at the process needs to look at the entire process and how everything was handled, because it feels like a lot of people who were interested ended up being alienated by the actual process itself.
And for me, looking on it, whoever's in charge of that process, whoever managed the process, for me, their position is pretty much untenable. Going by what's happened in this last 2-3 days, and for to put Paddy Carr in a situation like that there, and to put any individual, any human in a situation like that there is just. It's ridiculous, and for anybody that managed that process, they shouldn't be letting it near it at all. And it's just been a real roller coaster in terms of for this last 6-7 months. And it's nothing new for Donegal. You know, we went in the noughties and we were making national headlines. At least there was a bit of crack with the headlines we were making in terms of the binges we would have went on, and the Donegal players. And it just seems to go in these cycles. From we won in '92, there was a hullabaloo with Martin McHugh, and that whole appointment process set us back. We went into the noughties with a good team, loads of potential. The players just didn't have the mindset. The county board were the same, and I think the McGuinness thing covered up a lot of cracks. You know, I think he compensated for a lot, and Rory Gallagher followed after him, and obviously Boner now, but it was always going to revert to this.
It feels like there's been no legacy from the McGuinness era, no sense of like, oh, this is what a high performance environment looks like. It was more that it kind of flared up and then dissipated slowly.
And that's the tragic thing about this, is the really, really frustrating thing. Why, you know, so many of that 2012 team are so annoyed that there is no legacy. That was part of the deal, that we were to go on, you know, really blast it, really go at it, and leave that legacy for some young fella to go on then and just keep the thing going. And we never built on it. The county board have now left us in a situation where we're starting we've thrown the academy away. You know, and all that promise that was going to show, and you know the potential that it showed. We're now in a situation where, you know, we're going into Division 2. We've got rid of our manager, and you know it just doesn't look good. And the frustrating thing about it is that all the promise from the last decade is we've just got to start again.
Was the writing on the wall, Eamon, when you see Declan Bonner step down on the 20th of July? It takes until October 24th for Paddy Carr to be put in place alongside Aidan O'Rourke. Like, I guess it took that long because they wanted to find the right person, but was it concerning for you as an ex-Donegal player and as a Donegal man to see a process take that long and to see a lack of names maybe going forward? I know Rory Kavanagh was one that was quite heavily linked with the role, but it shouldn't take that long to appoint a manager.
No, it shouldn't, and I think the appointment process not only should have been started before, you know, there should have been moves made and, you know, talks made before we all knew this was Declan's last year in terms of last year. Moves should have been made, and we should have been, instead of reacting, you know, we should have been proactive and approaching the right men, putting things in place. And you know, with the Rory Kavanagh and, you know, Cara Lacey, with Jim coming on as an advisory, there's a lot of good vibes coming from that, and that fell through. And you know, probably wasn't all on the county board with that there. Now their stuff happened in terms of the county final and different stuff, but it should have been all wrapped up long before it. And there's also an argument out there, you know, just to bash the county board, the pool is shallow, and it's getting shallower in inter-county management because of the commitment. It goes to the same thing with when we're talking about county board officials and county boards, where it's just become so big a monster. The inter-county management pool is getting shallower and shallower because of that same reason. It's just so hard to commit to it.
It's almost impossible to, like, you need to either be very, very young and have no commitments, or you need to be at the end of your career and essentially retired and able to dedicate your time to it. And neither of those is perfect. Scenario A, you don't have a lot of experience, you don't really know how to manage people similar age to you. And then also scenario B, a lot of people who aren't fully in touch with the modern trends of the game. So it's incredibly difficult to find the right characters.
It's so hard, and what's going to come now is that more and more county boards, they're going to go full time. It has to come, because as we talked about, the finances, the whole monsters become. Inter-county management are going to follow secondly, and then the players are going to start looking around and saying, like, what's the story here? Why is everybody else getting a slice of the pie and we're not? And you know, that's the conversation we're going to have to start having, because that's the road we're on, and we need to be aware of that, and we need to kind of face that head on. Are we happy to keep on this road?
Yeah, and like there's loads of different ways around that, where you could have a director of football in a county, you could have an academy manager in a county. They could be full time, and part of their responsibilities could be in helping to prepare the senior inter-county team, whether or not that's as a manager or a selector. Like it's possible for us to put our brains together and come up with a structure that is sustainable. But as soon as you start mentioning payments over the counter legally, everybody goes up in arms and is like, no, you can't do that.
No, and I know that I've argued this point. You know, we have to just face this head on, that there's been payment in the inter-county game, been payment in the club game, and let's just regulate it and be mature enough to reach. This is where we've gotten our organisation, whether we let it happen and we stood by and let it happen, or whatever. But the fact is, we're here. Let's just face up to it. But the danger is the players. Like, how long can the players put in the commitment and then say, right, everybody else is getting paid here, why do we not get paid here? And it's dangerous territory for me, because the amateur ethos is so important for me anyway. In the GAA, the amateur ethos is important.
What do you think the atmosphere is like amongst the current players at the moment? I don't know if you've been speaking to any of them, and I'm not asking you to betray any confidences if you have, but what must, if I'm right, they met with Paddy Carr and expressed a desire for him to leave. That certainly seemed to be the if if you read the statement, that seemed to be the sequence of events. So once that happens, the writing's on the wall. And fair play to him for not sticking it out, because loads of managers have dug their heels in and said, no, I was appointed, this is my job. He obviously knew that the right thing to do at that stage was to go, and I think the sympathy that you've expressed for him is widespread across the GA community. But those players now, obviously, there's a rod for their back from their own people who are unhappy with it. They've made themselves a lightning rod for criticism. What's their sense of what the future holds in the short term?
And I think they obviously, with their smart enough lads there about there, they would have knew that this was a big decision to make to get rid of a manager. Halfway through the season, a few weeks out from championship, they knew what was going to come, and it will come. There's no point of saying otherwise, that their performances wouldn't have been probably up to scratch. So a lot of people are going to lay it on the players' head more than the management's head. So they would have been aware of it. And the only thing I can gauge, I know a few of them personally, like I haven't chatted, they've just left them be for this last few days, and the only thing is just to get trained hard, to get down at it, and just to keep it's important, because there's a lot of young people in that Donegal dressing room. It's important that we talked about legacy. It's important that the idea of playing for Donegal is still really, really sought after, and that is a really important, when you go to put on that jersey, it's a big thing, and we need to keep that ideal and keep that idea, and that's what the older lads in the county squad will be looking towards.
It's funny, because I was at the Monaghan Donegal game in Clonus, and although Donegal were poor performance-wise in the second half, you're still looking at their team on paper. Keelan McGonigal, Oisin Gallen, Michael Langan, all these young players who are brilliant, and there are more coming through, as you say. So it's a great job for somebody to have on paper. Like, this is a really exciting time for Donegal football, you'd imagine. What do you expect to happen at this stage? We know it's Aidan O'Rourke and Paddy Bradley in situ for the game against Roscommon this weekend, but would you expect a change before championship? Would you expect Aidan O'Rourke?
I don't expect a change. Okay. I think it'll be O'Rourke and Bradley, should they be happy enough to keep at it now. And I agree totally with you, Shane. Now I think this talk about transition, just accepting that Donegal will go down, and they'll drop down a few levels and maybe come back in a few years. And I think that's just accepting what other people are saying about Donegal. I think that it's important that the players don't accept that and keep trying to operate at that high level, because they have the ability, as you says. When you go through their team on paper, that there's a lot of players on there that would make lots of county teams around the country.
Because even after the Kerry game, I remember just the joy after the first league game. You're thinking, well, this was not expected. Beating the All-Ireland champions, and even Paddy Carr had a smile the length of Donegal. He was so happy after that match, and the performances were brilliant. So you'd wonder what happened thereafter, because then of course they drew with Galway as well, and they've been so close in other games, so you'd wonder
they
they
probably should have beat Galway and the Kerry. I remember I was doing a bit of work up in the media box, and seen Paddy and I seen the joy, and it just gave me such a lift to see that, because it had been such a negative few months, with different things, and to see us get that lift against Kerry, it was just a nice wee buzz. And for me, I just think it was just too big a thing for Paddy, and he had probably had an idea of inter-county management in his head from maybe 20 years ago, and it's radically different from that there. And it was, as time went on, I'd imagine just things were let slip, and things just weren't at the level that a lot of them, probably middle group, and a lot of the older group of that team would have played under Rory Gallagher, would have played under Jim McGuinness, probably came into Jim's final year too, and that's the standard they're used to. So they're probably not going to accept anything less now. So I'd imagine it just kept at it, and it just got to a stage where it just wasn't. Changes had to be made, basically.
It was also a slightly weird marriage of convenience at the end, in that a couple of candidates who'd gone for the job independently ended up on the same ticket, and so now Aidan O'Rourke is the manager. It feels like, and maybe we wait for official confirmation of titles and stuff, but I'd say Aidan O'Rourke knows the job of an inter-county manager pretty well, has a very good sense of what it takes. Is there a possibility that the right man is going to be fully responsible and given the freedom to take this forward?
I don't know. You need, Aidan O'Rourke's the only man that can answer that. Is he happy enough to take things? Paddy Bradley obviously will be knocking about there. O'Rourke will probably only go if Bradley stays about. So it's probably total. I'd imagine if the county board would be delighted if Aidan O'Rourke says I'll stay until the end of the year and then go looking at it. But the work needs to be starting now in terms of who do we get in for next year. Eventually it's going to be Kavanagh and Lacey. That it's just a matter of when they get into the county seat and when they make that move. And I'd imagine, going by what's happened in this last few months, that'll not happen unless changes are made at the top table now. So it's just about need to make the moves now for next year. Need to get chatting to the right people.
You were always a good man for rolling your sleeves up and getting involved in campaigns and putting your head above the parapet. If you look at the job that Michael Duggan has done in Offaly, are you inspired in any way to go and sit in county board meetings and sit for a couple of hours 3 times a week?
I think you need a distinct personality for that, and unfortunately I just don't. I'm not too good at holding the tongue now. So I don't think I'd see myself as a county board official.
Well, maybe it's just you need to shift the paradigm, Eamon, that's all.
Maybe that's what's needed. Maybe that's what's needed, Ger, is that you need a few boys just to let off an old verbal tirade or two now. But for now, I'd be happy enough to sit giving out on off the ball.
I not like to extend the point though. Like some of your generation do need to actually go and sit in those boring meetings and show up and influence the outcome of them, right?
100%, the right people, and I think there was moves made to get people like that into the county board, and I think that's what ultimately the route was. It was seen as a coup up here in terms of which few people try to get a chairman and a coaching officer and just different ideas, different way of looking at things, and just try and change the culture. And I believe, and that's my own personal opinion, that Carl Lacey paid the price for that, because he would have been interacting with various people and trying to make that happen.
All right, well, we wish you all in Donegal the very best. The Aidan O'Rourke, Paddy Bradley might be a ticket to get a bit of a kick over the next few weeks, and certainly the Ulster Championship and then the round robin. There's loads of actual football matches to be played where those young players will have an opportunity to decide this is our chance to be leaders, and hopefully it's always darkest before the dawn, that awful cliche. Hopefully this is just the bit before the dawn that comes for Donegal football, because as you say, there's incredible talent up there. Great stuff, great to talk to you again. Thanks a million, man.
Cheers Shane, chat to you later. Thank you.
Eamon McGee there. We obviously are attempting to offer everybody on the Donegal County Board the opportunity to come on and explain exactly what their side of the story is. For now, we're not hearing anything from the various previous contestants to be the new manager or the recently stepped aside manager, but it's obviously a story that's going to continue. I think the starting point for that conversation, though, is in Tommy Martin's piece as well. Like, Donegal is obviously a football county, and the spend on hurling is tiny, but in other counties that are dual counties, it's £1 million on both the senior and hurling and football teams, and then there's all the other expenditure that you have on games development and games promotion and trying to get fundraising done. And it's like, it's not a job for people who aren't qualified, who don't have some finance or marketing or logistics or operations experience. It is people doing their hobby who find themselves going, have I ticked all the boxes for the procedures for this election that were written 100 years ago?
Yeah, you can't just be someone who likes GA. I like GA, I'll throw my hat in the ring, I love Donegal football. You actually have to have some business acumen, some experience, as you say, and that is so important. Like what Eamon is saying, you pick the right person to be on the county board, because you want to pick the right person who's the county manager. But I mean, the county board is so important, we don't even realise, and it's getting more important year on year. So.
Yeah, for sure. Stephen Fraser says Ireland should have... we already did that one, sorry. Barry Clark says, I watched more rugby than soccer, but it was clear to my untrained eye Smallbone is technically gifted. Every corner he took was spot on, as was every cross and pass he made. If he's good enough, he's old enough. Well, he's 23, so it's not like he's a kid. Laser Snake with the point of the morning says, Smallbone shows a lack of ambition. Kenny should find a big bone to declare for us.
Wow. Point of the morning, is it?
Big bone and hardy handsome.
Yeah. Less
Okay.
said there, the better, I think.
The league is great. Just look at the attendances. And Shifty Lad wants to know, could there be a Six Nations Lions to play at some stage against a Southern Nations Lions type 3-test game? So joining Sanzar and Argentina versus, we just be adding the French team and the Italians to the Lions.
Basically.
We need more rugby. We need more big game. I mean, it's like, stop playing club matches and just play international rugby. We'd all be happy. Anywho, OTB AM with Gillette Labs got the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now. On tomorrow's show, Shabana Hearn on the WSL. We've got Alan Quinlan, Kevin Cabana, who of course played in the 0-0 with France in 2004 alongside Roy Keane in centre mid. We've got the Fire Pit and plenty more besides. Right now, Stuey Byrne talking with Stephen Doyle at the Aviva after the match. Attack the day, embrace its inevitable turbulence, says Colm.
Stephen Doyle here alongside Stuey Byrne after our commentary on the Republic of Ireland versus Latvia. It's pretty banging here at the Aviva Stadium still, but we will plough on. It finished 3-2 to the Republic of Ireland. Goals from Evan Ferguson and from Callum O'Dowda in the first half. Latvia got a couple of goals before half time to make it 2-2, but Chidozio Benny struck with the winning goal to make it 3-2 in the second half, and that's how it finished. Let's start on the bad stuff, I suppose, first, Stewie. You were mentioning towards the end of our commentary there, a bit disappointing to see that Ireland are still very vulnerable around the edge of the box.
Yeah, well, that lack of concentration, that lack of sort of not bringing trouble or on ourselves is still a problem for us. You know, we've seen it in the past in Luxembourg, Azerbaijan. There's been, games where we've been in control and then all of a sudden someone steps up. It seems to be quite repetitive, but 20-25 yards out and sticks one in the top corner because he's got time to get the shot away, and it was evident again this evening. Now I have to say the goal, Uldrich, is out of this world. It's 35 yards out and there's very little you can do about it, but it's still a pressing concern because the second goal is more of a worry. It's something that we've brought on ourselves. We failed to clear our lines in the box. Kind of two players are kind of coming together. The communication is poor. We don't get any purchase on the clearance, and all of a sudden 17 for Latvia, his name is escaping me now, is on the edge of the box and he's just banging one into the back of the net, and I just feel that that's a little seed in our head. It plants a seed in our head, and it's always there, and it's something that we have to eradicate sooner rather than later.
Is that something bringing Josh Cullen into the team will sort?
I think, I don't think it's as easy as that. I mean, fair enough, if Josh is playing, he occupies that central area and he has that sort of ability to read danger. But, I made the point in the game, I think he might have been playing in the other games where it's happened. So I think it's a collective thing. It's, not putting the ball in stupid areas and just being a little bit more decisive in your clearances. There's nothing wrong with every now and then, maybe if you're under a bit of pressure, just clear your lines, and we didn't do that on especially for the second goal. Again, the first goal was world class.
And if it's happening so much, Stewie, does that fall on the manager or the players? I would imagine Stephen Kenny knows this is happening, so him and Keith Andrews are saying to the players, we've got to deal with this. So is it then
I think it's a player thing, Stephen. Not to be quite honest with you, it's we play in a game now where there's no doubt about it. There's encouragement to play everywhere on the pitch. The goalkeeper's involved. You're looking to pass out from goal kicks. You're playing in really tight, intricate areas. We're more confident on the ball, but there's no harm every now and then when we're in a bit of trouble. Don't put the ball at risk, especially in and around that 20-yard area. Just be a little bit more sensible. Be a little bit more bit more old school, to be quite honest. There's no harm in it. I'm not telling players to go and welly the ball out of the pitch, but I just think we're guilty of being trying to play in silly areas, and we're getting caught out. And it's obviously the opposition team that probably looked at it and says they can be a little bit silly in these areas. And I felt Latvia, there was occasions this evening where they kind of let us have the ball. They were letting us have the ball. They were a little bit passive, and then in the right areas they looked to rob us, and it worked for them. They got both their goals from similar situations. So if Latvia are looking at us and are playing against us that way, then there's no doubt about it that France are going to look to do something similar.
And they've got a bit of pace on their left-hand side as well.
Stephen, yeah.
Kylian
Mbappe. Anyway.
But we saw Matt Doherty play well tonight alongside Smallbone getting forward. But they're going to have to worry about Kylian Mbappe and the rest coming at them on Monday night.
Yeah, they're going to have to go and play as well. We that was the takeaway from me, I have to say, this evening. Will Smallbone, absolutely fantastic. But that partnership that he struck up with Matt Doherty, I thought we saw a different Matt Doherty this evening. Looked really involved. He was involved in both goals, and I think I'm not too sure what it's going to be on Monday, but I would imagine that Smallbone's performance has given Stephen a big headache, not just because he's played well and he's also delivered the cross for the first goal for Adauda, but it's that partnership with Matt Doherty. I think he's brought out something more in Matt Doherty, so headache for him. But that's the takeaway for me. You mentioned you were talking about Mikey Johnson. He looks a hell of an option, doesn't need to bring off the bench,
and will be just off the bench, of course. But he just he looks like he's a player that he's not afraid of getting forward and trying to beat defenders. We don't see an awful lot of wingers these days trying to beat defenders. There's always a tendency with wingers to trying to check back and pass it back into the midfield.
Yeah, I think the word might be overcoached, to be quite a terrible term, but it is. You can be overcoached, and he looks to me like he's just to get turned and goal players and just be a real not just a nuisance, but put the there's an old saying, put the mockers up defenders, which he does, because they just back off immediately, and he's done that this evening. He's 40 yards out, he's gotten torn, and he's run at the Latvian defenders, didn't know how to deal with it. His shots hit the bars, led to the goal, and the wonderful individual skill down in the right hand corner there, that's instinctive. You don't tell players to do that. They just either have that in the locker or they don't, and he certainly has it, and he plays with a smile on his face. He didn't look nervous to me at all, and all of a sudden you look at him going, wow, what an option he is.
Looking at central midfield tonight, it didn't look like Ireland really got a hold of the ball and just not even doing anything in centre, but just being careful with the ball and protecting it, and that's something I suppose we'll be hoping Josh Cullen will be able to do on Monday night when he comes back in.
Yeah, it might have been a game for the manager to say, I'm going to let that one go. I know it's a silly thing to say, but not going to put too much emphasis on that, because I know Josh is going to come in there, he'll do a job. We need to focus on other areas of the pitch and how we can get combinations going that's going to create opportunities for us. And I thought we had that in the first half, and certainly in the second half as well, and they came from different areas of the pitch. You'd argue that in the first half, the good combination play between Smallbone and Doherty, good movement from Evan Ferguson, Obafemi as well, the little balls down the channel. We certainly got players into areas to get strikes away, but for last ditch Latvian tackles. So that tells you're creating opportunities. And then the chances in the second half came probably more so from individual players like Mikey Johnson coming on and has shown a little bit of energy and a little bit of something about him to kind of go at players. So there's good options, good takeaways. I suppose people are walking away. I'm walking away not too worried about the 2 goals. Oh, well, there's a little seed in the back of my head, worried about the two goals we conceded, but I'm more kind of going, do you know what, I think we might be in good shape for Monday.
Evan Ferguson, you mentioned his name. That's the first time we've mentioned his name in this post-match chat.
Who?
We spoke about all the pressure that would be on him coming into this game. FAI were tweeting pictures of his starting jersey. Number 19, of course, Michael Obafemi still has the number 9 shirt.
They're hardly going to give him the number 9 shirt, really.
Well, I saw it first, actually, I thought it was the number 10 shirt. I was like, he's not going to be a number 10, is he? Anyway, he's got the 19 shirt. He's scored his first international goal the night of his first start. How important is that for him?
Oh, huge, especially for strikers, and considering the form that he's in as well. And he has, I suppose there's a lot for him to do with, Stephen. I think you need to be careful about it as well. Kind of saying in commentary, he needs to be allowed to make mistakes. Regardless of what age you are, there has to be a certain amount of forgiveness for making mistakes. When you're 18 years of age, he needs a lot of room. Because I do think he certainly has something, and people don't need me to say that. He's shown at the top level in the Premier League that he's got it all right. It's whether he can go from being, how would you describe it at the moment, a player in form, a top player, to a really, really top player. We could have a gem on our hands here with this guy, and we're all part of his development. And and we can only but hope he goes on to fulfil every potential that we hope he can be. But I'll take a goal off him on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. And he got a goal tonight just outside, because we got a chance here tonight to see his general play. You get to see the whole pitch. What else did you see that you liked apart from scoring the goal?
Oh, I like his I like his movement. I like. I think he's got everything. I think he's really got everything. Like he's.
Those little first touch passes.
Sometimes you can have. You know, it's a terrible thing. Sometimes you can have too much in your game. If you know too much in your locker, I think he's got it all. Like, you know, he's so comfortable dropping in. He works that sort of 30-yard line really, really well, and he loves getting turned, and he wants to play with people. That's probably why OTB's there, looking to get little 1-2s off and looking to get down the side of defenders. But when the ball goes wide, I feel he really comes alive. You know, he has a really good movement. He's able to lose his marker no problem. And there was a couple of occasions in that first half where he found himself with 5 or 6 yards of space in and around that penalty area, and the delivery just let him down. But I think that will come when players get used to him, get used to knowing what his little, you know, idiosyncrasies are, what his movement is, where he likes to end up, whether it's a front post run or a deep post, back post hang up, or whatever the case may be. So I think that will come in time.
And just to finish, Stewie, because going into a big game like France, and Irish players might be thinking, oh, this is France, they're in the World Cup final, they've got Kylian Mbappe, they've got Upamecano, they've got Kanate, you know, Griezmann, they've got all these superstars. What does it do for the Irish players? Because I'm sure, like us, they've been watching Evan Ferguson over the last few months and going, crikey, this fella is really, really good. What does it do then for the Irish team's confidence, knowing we've got this player who really could make a huge difference for us?
Yeah, absolutely. There's no doubt about it. It's I suppose it can kind of take a little bit of pressure off some of the players. Like, you know, such a young kid is taking a lot of focus, Stephen, and he looks like he can cope with it, but it's not just him. I have to say, like, if I was part of that Irish squad, I'd be looking around me going, do you know what, this is probably the strongest squad of players I've been part of for, I'd say, 3 or 4 years at least, to be quite honest with you. I think everyone looks like they want to play. You know, you just have to look at the injury list. We don't have an injured players. Okay, Eid is injured, but it's not long term, and there's a possibility he could still be knocking on the door to be in contention, to go on the bench on Monday, whatever the case may be. But in you know, especially in this time of the year, in March, for the last 2-3 years, we've had, you know, all sorts of injury worries in coming into games. But all of a sudden now, it's, you know, everyone wants to play and everyone's chomping at the bit to get into the team.
I never became a footballer, Stewie, because I had way too much in my locker. Way too much, unlike yourself. Anyway, myself and Stewie will be back on Monday for Ireland against France on Off the Ball. It'll be live from 7 o'clock. We're doing the whole show from here, so do join us then. Thank you. Will, did you think you'd mark your senior debut for the Republic of Ireland with a man in the match award?
Yeah, it's a very proud moment for me and my family, and yeah, obviously it was something I was looking forward to for a long time, and like you say, to get man in the match wasn't something maybe I was expecting, but I'm very happy it happened.
Your mum's from Kilkenny, isn't she? Was she here tonight? Any of the family here?
Yeah, no, my mum was here, so yeah, like you say, she is very proud up there today.
Did she give you a message beforehand, or did she kind of stay back?
No, she's very forthcoming in her messages, so she was texting me, wishing me good luck and telling me to relax and enjoy it, and yeah, no, she's been great.
That's brilliant. You obviously played really well out there tonight. Good link up there with Evan Ferguson. He said himself here that maybe that experience playing underage level has helped you both.
Yeah, no, I think it has. Obviously, we know we played many games on underage levels together, and we know each other's kind of movements and that. And yeah, to be out there and share the pitch with him today was very special, and yeah, very good day.
And even the two of you linking up really well with Michael Obafemi as well.
Yeah, obviously I know Michael from a long time, playing under 18s at Southampton with him, and yeah, it's obviously nice to be out there with two good friends, and I've been looking forward to playing with Michael for a while, so I was happy to be out there with him today.
I know at Southampton you come to the academy, you're playing a lot central midfield, but you have ended up going out on the right, I know, towards the latter stage before you went out on loan in Stoke. At Stoke you've been more central, so how do you kind of see yourself in this Irish team?
Oh, I definitely see myself in a central area, whether that be as a number 10, number 8, but equally I do quite like kind of like a channel run to get in behind teams, and allows me to get the ball across the box, which I think with my fitness that it can allow me to do.
What have you made of coming in under Stephen Kenny? What's he done for your confidence, for your play?
Yeah, no, he was great, especially when he obviously told me that I was playing. He just told me to go out there, enjoy myself, enjoy the moment, and play with no fear, essentially. And yeah, hopefully I did that.
Just want to ask you about Evan. I know he's behind you there. We'll keep it quiet, but when you see a player like him doing what he's doing, you know, I'm sure all the other players have seen what he's doing. Does that give everybody confidence going into the game like France on Monday?
Yeah, exactly. I think, like you say, it gives everyone confidence. He's such a young age. He's done a lot in his short career, and I think he's obviously seems to have a knack for scoring goals. So hopefully, long may it continue for him. And no, it wasn't for him today to get his goal on his first start at home. And no, he's a good lad, and he deserves it.
Stephen Kenny said he wanted to be given options going into this game against France with the team that he played tonight. So do you think maybe you've kind of put a little seed of thought into his head that you might be able to start against the French?
Hopefully, yeah, that's all I could do out there today. Like you say, give me a chance, and yeah, everyone coming into camps wants to play, and obviously the big game is Monday against France at home, and yeah, no, I'd love to play a part in it, and hopefully we'll see what happens.
When you talk about James Ryan is a different player to what he was a couple of years ago. He's put on more bulk. He is putting in a lot of tackles. He is using his hands very well. You know, I think he's a more complete player than he was before. I thought he was jaded 2 or 3 years ago. I think he'd been through a period of time where he had played every minute of every game, and I don't know that he was necessarily old enough or had enough bulk on to be able to deal with the punishment that he was getting at that period of time. I just think he's matured into a far better player, and I think he looks absolutely integral to this team. I could also see him stuck into, like, he's playing on the tight head side of the scrum. That's tough. You know, it's hard on him, hard on the body, and he seems to be relishing it. So, yeah, of course he's going on the lines. You're dead right.
And it was a position as well, Keith, I think, on that tight head side of the second row that Joe Schmidt was always trying to kind of beef up a little bit, even in the early stages of his career, where, you know, John Klein became very much favoured at that point for the physicality he could add on that side. So probably, as you say, the body shape of Ryan, and maybe just a bit more of his experience as well, has probably helped to bring him up a level in the last year or two.
Well, I look, again, I sound like I'm worrying a lot of these guys. I'm not really, but I worried a little for the fact that he was very young when he started. He played 80 minutes in an awful lot of the games. I mean, I think, did he win the first 22 or 3 matches that he played, including a Grand Slam and a Heineken Cup? You kind of don't want to get him off the field, but you still need to build up a body of work into the body to be able to take that, and playing that number of matches takes an awful lot out of you. I kind of half think that not going on that Lions tour may have been the best thing for him. Not that it would suit him, and it definitely would have affected him and would have upset him an awful lot. But he's come back from that slightly more bitter, slightly bigger, stronger, incredibly effective.
Looks like Aidan O'Rourke and Paddy Bradley will stay on for at least this weekend. Not sure beyond that. I'd be surprised if they don't stay on beyond that. At this stage, as you say, then it's a short turnaround into the Down game, and you know that has been a worry in the back of their mind since the start of the year. You know that, and they've gone up to Newry and you know, beaten Down comfortably on a couple of occasions. They hammered them in their last championship meeting out the gate in Newry, but there's been a feeling with, obviously the thing has slowed down a wee bit for Down since a big start in the McKenna Cup and a bright start to the league. It has tapered off a small bit, but there's definitely a sense of a full house in Newry, and Donegal being the way they are, like Paddy McBrearty still on crutches. There's no real sign of him possibly being fit for that. They're still going to be down a lot of men. Down, even though they've missed out on promotion, will bring something different. It's just become a very dangerous.
OTB AM with Gillette Labs. Get the ultimate shave or your money back. Neon Night Edition available now.
The Coigig Pod.